And on that bombshell, we have to show off Valerian's backpack. Where were you keeping that fish, Valerian? Tor's been dead for years, Jay Palmer. What are you talking about? Okay, where were we? Let's see. So we were talking about great, awesome stuff and how WoW's incredible and housing is the best place it's ever been in. Best housing in an MMO, actually. I'm legitimately impressed with that, honestly. I look forward to reviewing it someday. Yeah, as of right now, if you depending on how you get technically about it, Tor had. Oh, hey, look, it's Kurthia. Depending on how you define it, Tor has had content updates since I reviewed it. But let me tell you, it's such a technically thing, and I got to be real about this. I've got to be very, very blunt. If you're at the point where you have to technically how much content updates a game has gotten just to define if it has had content updates at all, maybe that doesn't count. You know? Like, if you want to define it as they are still patching Tor, then yes, that's true. That's a statement that is a valid and honest statement. It's a little misleading, but it's true. If they are trying to fix bugs that they have introduced because they're trying to update its DirectX thing for absolutely no reason in a game that doesn't need it, then yes, that's also a true statement. They started adding a quest, which has a couple of quests that follow through on that. That counts, right? STO had a new quest added. That counts. That's content, right? Remember when we did the STO run? Because they've added one freaking new quest since then. And in case you forgot, the last time we ran STO was a year ago. And I'm sorry, but that's just sort of making my point for me. If you have released one quest in a year, maybe your game is already dead and you just don't know it yet. Someone else actually said it much more accurately. They said that STO and Tor aren't dead because a dead MMO is like Asheron's Call. Well, no, that's actually not true either. A dead MMO is like Star Wars Galaxies. There we go. It's offline. The plug has been pulled. Tor and STO are zombies. Yeah, Warframe actually does freaking updates. Anyways. So, when last we left our intrepid party... no. See, Asheron's Call is actually a step below dead, which... This honestly only occurred to me recently. Because Asheron's Call had the plug pulled, but people weren't able to reverse engineer most of the content. Like, percentage-wise, there are fan servers up. But most of the content on those fan servers is fan-created. So, yeah, Asheron's Call is gone, is a more accurate term. It is lost. It is lost media, which sucks. And speaking as someone who has said many times, including today, that Asheron's Call is not a very good game, it still sucks that it's a part of history that is gone. Anyways, Kurthia. Speaking of dead and gone, I could not have asked for a better segue than that. Look at this beautiful zone. Look at this amazing. Look at it. Oh, it's so beautiful. When last we left the party, we were talking about raids. I'm going to go ahead and repeat the last reward. Reward? Award that we gave. Yeah, it's Drustvar. Check it out. It's changed for some reason. So, let's talk about the Sanctum of Domination. So, as we've mentioned several times, by this point in history, even in Shadowlands, the raids are still good. WoW makes good raid bosses. Water's wet. Birds fly. It's whatever. So, Sanctum is still a good raid. It's worth noting. Pound for pound. It is just the worst raid of the bundle by a pretty large margin, because in addition to just being terrible story-wise, as so many things in Shadowlands are, it also has several stumbling blocks on the gameplay axis. Some of these fights are a little bit eyebrow-raising, and some of them are honestly ridiculous. But the one that really comes to mind... So first of all, obviously, they ruined my boy, Kel'Thuzad, here. Didn't even give him a proper update. Like, this is an updated model, but think about all the cool, awesome, unique Lich models that we've had in Shadowlands. And it's just Kel'Thuzad again. They could have done anything with him. It's just the dude. And they don't even do anything with him. He's just like, hey, sup? How are things? But then we got Sylvanas, and God, this fight sucks. Like, I was actually thinking about this more since yesterday. And the problem with this fight is that it starts off fine. In fact, I would go so far as to say the first phase of her fight is actually quite good. Then there's the second phase of her fight, which is actively terrible. It's a bridge fight. And you have to literally go across the chains. You're walking on those chains there in order to get to her. And it's janky and weird, the physics. So she moves forward, and you have to do enough damage to her or the ads in order to make Thrall and Jaina move forward. And you have to split the group up. One going with Thrall, one going with Jaina. And as you're moving forward, they create the platforms, but the platforms have issues. Bad writing, to correct. Actually, it's more complicated than that. So there's this one asshole who doesn't work at the company anymore. And pretty much the last thing he did before he was canned for being a sex offender was he wrote The Burning of Teldrassil. And the rest of the writing team was kind of stuck with it with no notes or any idea what to do with it or how to move forward with it. That's not a joke, by the way. Yeah, oh yeah, also, there's a couple of points when you're going across the bridge where if you don't interrupt her, the whole raid instantly wipes. That's not a joke. It is a very binary fight twice. You know I don't like binary difficulty in raid boss, or in boss design. There are there are 3 binary fail states in the Sylvanas fight. 2 on the bridge, and then 1 in Phase 3. In Phase 3, I forget the specifics, but it's like there's these platforms, and if you go to the wrong platform at the wrong time, you wipe, you're dead, instantly. It's not a very good fight. And it's ignoring the fact that it's not satisfying because we don't actually kill her ass. And then what's followed after that is a weirdly good cutscene that makes no sense because of its connection to the jailer. Yes, J. Palmer. Ask me how I know. God. So, yeah, no, Sanctum of Domination. Worst raid in Shadowlands. Pretty easy. Okay, let's get some positivity in here. Let's get some positivity. How about we get out of Kurthia? I think we're done with Kurthia, right? Okay, so now that we're done with Kurthia, what's the best raid? Well, unfortunately, there's only 3 raids, so there's not a lot of competition here. So what do y'all think? It's pretty bad, Moog. I actually agree with that. So here's our options, right? We've got Castle Nothria, and we've got the Sepulchre of the First Ones. Now, Sepulchre was actually better than I thought it was. I will admit I have never experienced it back in the day, so my opinion on that is very limited. But the fights are interesting, and the visuals are cool, and there's some decent stuff here. And this is actually one of the cooler fights, so okay, whatever. Even the jailer fight mechanically is actually interesting, so sure. But no, it has to be Castle Nothria, right? First and foremost, I did experience this fight back in the day, and a lot of these fights are baller. Personal favorite fights. Sun King's Salvation, where we have to deal with Kael'thas' sins, is a fantastic fight. I would also be remiss if I did not mention the Council of Blood, which is Boogie Down, for those of you who prefer the meme version of this, but unironically and unmemingly, this fight is great. It's the dance fight. And each of these guys has their own mechanics. They have ads that they deal with. It's a council fight. But the main mechanic is periodically each of them do the dance macabre. And which types of dances you have to do and the benefits and detriments of doing that depend on which particular council member is currently active, whether it's him, her, or him. And they did a lot of really great stuff with the dancing. And I love it. I just want to comment on that, because, yeah. 61 pulls. Jesus Christ. Grats. I'm pulling that. No, the dance mechanic isn't particularly hard. Sure, Spartan. Boogie down. Yeah, there's the meme. I knew it was coming. There it was. It's still a great fight. I don't want to hear it. It's still a great fight. And of course, Sire Donathrius is a fantastic fight. This fight's amazing. But I don't have a document up, and that's my fault for being stupid. Let's pull a document up. Here we go. Here we go. Exclude. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon block. Silk Song and 9 souls. Yeah, it looks cool. It sounds cool. There's actually some decent visuals and storytelling to not Castle Nathria. The cosmetics in there are cool. Like it's just a solid raid, top to bottom. Um, I've even reviewed it currently to Quack. It's a current review. Did you know I've got this thing called a website? Thank you, Ect, for the sub. I've already gotten that down for Silksong, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, and Nine Souls. Is it good? Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 1 is good in the first town, Santa Monica, and I mean that. I would go so far as to say that it's worth playing just for the first town. The game kind of does nothing but get worse from that point onwards. Hi, Huthor. You've missed a bit. Anyway, so Shadowlands, right? So that's our best raid. What's the worst boss? It's Sylvanas. It's Sylvanas. Moving on. What's the best raid boss in Shadowlands? I'm just going to skip right over that. I was very torn on this one, honestly. Because best boss fight obviously is primarily a gameplay equation. But, you know, there's bits of spectacle and visuals and story relevance. And as I already mentioned, the jailer fight, for all of the horribleness about him as a character and his position in the lore, is actually a pretty solid fight. Kaisen Zero would put Mythic Sylvanas, which I actually have never experienced, as the thing. I wonder what's different in Mythic. I wonder if I could look at that at a glance. Probably not. Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, meh, whatever. Kel'Thuzad is actually a very solid fight. Legitimately. As I mentioned, for all my issues with Kel'Thuzad, the fight itself is actually pretty solid. The whole idea is that you fight him repeatedly, and the actual thing that you have to kill is his phylactery, which is effectively a separate boss fight. And so you're fighting his phylactery, and you kill him to gain access to the phylactery, and you just kind of rotate around like that. We're doing best right now. Best rate. We already did worst. It's Sylvanas. Moving on. It's Sylvanas. It's Sylvanas. Moving on. But best. I admit, this is probably the least cohesive of my own particular picks here because I'm not sure actually, Takota. Talking about this dude? No, you're talking about... I know you're talking about. Is it this guy? This guy, right here. This guy. Yeah, no, this is actually a great fight. I'll actually agree with that. My own pick, though, and I'll admit this is the least firm opinion that I have in this entire WoW Game Awards, is this dude. The Anduin fight, I mean, it's... You know, I talked earlier about how I very much enjoy... about how much I enjoy themed fights, right? And theme fights, like, we actually talked about one back in BFA. Jaina is a Frost Mage fight, right? And Tyrant Velhari back in Warlords is a Paladin fight. Anduin... why are you inviting me, Spartan? Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, here, hi. Anduin is a Lich King Paladin fight. It's actually kind of like more of a priest fight. Excuse me. I don't know why I said Paladin. It's a priest fight. So it's like a Lich King priest fight. So the mechanics and styles based off of the Lich King fight back in Wrath, combined with just using priest abilities, which is just kind of cool. Yeah, it's an oscillation between the two, and it's great. And he kind of shifts back and forth between the two. And obviously there's some nostalgia in here, but honestly, this is a better fight than the Lich King fight because it's a modern fight and they do more cool, interesting stuff with it. So yeah, no, this is fantastico. Also great music. You know, we've got Despair, Hope, Doubt. Despair is for tanks, Hope is for healers, Doubt is for DPS. Boy, that does not sound familiar. Great fight. I think, because the thing that kind of pushes this ahead is, even though this is primarily a gameplay consideration, the narrative of what's going on with Anduin here is actually kind of cool. If only the jailer didn't exist and they did this properly, this would be kind of badass. And, I mean, it certainly was relevant. They did an entire expansion following through on that concept. But anyways, I digress. I'm guessing it's this person. Who's Glorfindel? Anybody know that? Not from Lord of the Rings. On WoW. Battle.net. Okay, so what's the best dungeon boss? Now, I was actually very torn on this, because a lot of dungeons in Shadowlands are legit. And I actually had the great fortune of doing Mythic Shadowlands during one of the Mythic rotations of, I believe it was Dragonflight. Dragonflight or War with it. It's very recent. So I've actually gotten to experience a lot of the Shadowlands dungeons way more cohesively than I have the Shadowlands raids. So, a lot of good choices is what I'm trying to say. A lot of relatively simple choices, but like really good usage of those mechanics. It's just some cool stuff. I was very torn on this one. I have to admit, I like General Grievous quite a bit. Oh, he doesn't have the sword. This dude, literally, he's General Grievous. He's General Grievous. He straight up. He's got the mech suit thing, and he's got the 4 arms, and he's got a blade on each arm. It's cool, but that's not it. I also have to admit, I like the Pirate Time Dragon, which is a concept I wish they'd do more with, because it's a time-traveling pirate. Yar. But actually, for all the fights in here, many of which are very, very cool and interesting and fun. I liked all of Plaguefall, too. I went with the Monostorms. So you fight Millhouse and then Maleficent, kind of like one and then the other and then one. Time Police, Time Ninja. Oh my god, I think it's already a thing. Millhouse is the mage, Maleficent is like the techie, and then both of them combine and start actually working together, combining their mechanics. It's kind of like a micro FF14 fight, like an FF14 raid fight in a dungeon, and it's very fun. It's very cool. It's an amusing fight. You know, the two of them being a couple until finally we get the Mojo winning, because remember, we're there to get Mojo to help out against Moisella. So, great fight. Thumbs. Okay. What is the best song in Shadowlands? Now, Shadowlands did have some good music. I will say it's probably one of the weaker soundtracks of World of Warcraft, but it still had some banger songs. Huthor just mentioned one. It was the Anduin fight theme. The Jailer has his own fight theme too, which is actually pretty legit. But I'm just going to start playing mine for you. This is called Shadow Death. For those of you who don't recognize it, this is a remix, development. It's based on the motif of the Whispers of the Dead song from Vanilla. I love what they do with it. I do. The previous song to me was very calm, soothing. This is not. This is not that. Yeah, no, this is ominous. This is terrifying. Yeah, this makes me think of how interesting and terrifying and horrible this could have been. And wasn't, obviously. Like, there's not a lot of atmosphere like this, really. The Maw tried. And we'll talk about the Maw in a minute. Okay, I'm gonna pause this. This is an 8-minute song without pausing. So, just trust me when I say... I guess we're gonna have it going on in, like, the background. Turn it down a little bit. Because it just kind of keeps going. It's absolutely horrifying. So, Shadow Death is the name of the song. So, let's get down to the story axis. Which zone has the worst graphics and visual design in Shadowlands? Hey, you probably wondered why I was still hanging out in Carthia, didn't you? No, this is the worst zone, gameplay-wise, Lord Harrimont. It just also happens to be the worst zone, visually, along with a couple other ways. Can you think of a zone that looks worse in Shadowlands, J. Palmer? The chains are interesting, although they're kind of glitchy a little bit. You can tell they were kind of thrown together because they're just sent into the skybox at a certain point. You didn't play Shadowlands. So that sounds like a no to me. Let's get the hell out of here. I think we're done with Carthia for now. Let's just leave, shall we? Alright. Best visuals. Okay, it's Ardenweald. It's Ardenweald. Let's just get that out of the way. I'm not even going to fly back out there. You know what Ardenweald looks like. I was flying around there for like half the thing. It's Ardenweald. Ardenweald looks amazing. The end. We're just going to call that and call it good. It's not even close. I actually like the look of most of the Shadowlands zones. Like, Revendreth is the big gothic architecture, you know, and Bastion has like the sweeping kind of light golden fields with that kind of lavender purple thing going on. Zereth Mortis has like its weird alien geometry and solid water effect. Even Maldraxxus at least has a consistent vibe, even though I'm not a fan of it personally. But the next category, and you probably already noticed where I am, so you probably already know it's winner, is best atmosphere. Now, a lot of people have a lot of problems with the Maw. Validly, because the Maw had a lot of problems, especially at launch. But if there's one thing the Maw did well, it was atmosphere. Yeah, Turbo Hell, as we called it. This was just, oh my god, everything about the Maw was legitimately horrifying. There's a river of souls. There's a river of souls just running through the place. There's... The ground itself is, like, they do this thing right here. I don't even know what this is. Maybe Evo could tell you. Maybe Uthor could. Like, you see this spot of land right here? There's, like, chunks of plated brick and dirt and rock over top of, like, what looks like something that's just a pile of rusted nails. And the impression visually is that the pile of rusted nails is, like, the real ground, and everything else has been built up on top of it. Yeah, oh no, I feel like this whole place is just being here. Just walking around here has got to be horrifyingly draining. Literally, as well as, you know, more metaphorically. But yeah, so I have to actually at least show off the River of Souls. Because the River of Souls looks like this when you actually get into it. And I don't know if I'm in the right phase to perceive this. But... Nope, yep, there we go. As you're standing here, each of the souls that goes by has a chance to say something. And there's actually a fairly large body of text that they can say. And some of it's confused, some of it's lost, some of it's in pain, some of it's begging for help. Some of it's very specific. Like, there's some really specific things these souls say where it makes you think, oh, that's someone who died there, kind of a thing. It's random, unfortunately, so you may not see all of it, but there are a lot of things the souls can say. It's a whole thing. So yeah, for all of my many issues with the Maw, atmosphere is not one of them. There's a reason why I've listed this place as, at the very least, tied for the worst, hell that I've ever seen in fiction. The other one being The Wall. Oh, absolutely. I mean, you could have taken the Jailer in a lot of different directions, Jay Palmer, being honest. Not saying yours is invalid, it's just yours is valid, that's the point. There's a lot of things they could have done with the Jailer. They didn't. Hell, even the broken robot concept would have worked if they did it properly. Execution matters, right? Anyways. Yeah, he knows I can mount in the Maw now. Like a huge zone you can't mount in. Oh yeah, everything's just kind of floating towards Torghast bit by bit. Even like the crystallized soul essence, the crystallized anima periodically, or like the faint wisps of souls like that right there, all of it's all drifting in the same direction. It's all going towards Torghast. You'll notice they would use this same effect to great effect over in Koresh with Dementius and Monoforge Omega. But anyways, I'm going to spend enough time in the Maw. Let's move on. Which zone has the best overall music? I was actually very torn on this one. Any thoughts? I'll give you a hint. It's the music that's playing right now was my pick. This is Glenn Stafford, by the way. One of his last things with WoW, I do believe. Sorry, even with the mount, it takes me a minute to get out of the Maw. I must be thinking someone else then. Never mind. Ignore me. I'm wrong. So I'm not going to zoom around because it takes forever, so I'm just going to tell you. My pick for the zone with the best overall music is actually Bastion. Which is this music that's playing right now. Don't worry, we won't listen to the whole thing. It's like 30 minutes of music. But the Bastion over here has some great music. And some good variety. I was actually pretty torn on this one between Bastion and Revendreth. Revendreth has that wonderful do-do-dum, do-do, do-do-dum, do-do. The violin thing. But ultimately, I preferred the more Greco styling, for lack of a better way to put it, of Bastion. Oh, it's extremely horrifying. That's the best part. Okay, that was best music. Who's our best side character in Shadowlands? We actually had several good side characters in Shadowlands. Amusingly, the Jailer probably would qualify as side character, if you think about it. Lady Moonberry is certainly a popular pick, and for good reason. I decided not to go with Moonberry, though. For those of you who don't know of the pseudo joke, the Jailer has so little screen time. It is so obvious that he wasn't really designed from the word go to be a character, that he was just kind of clunked on, right? Yeah, the thing is, so we all spit venom at Shadowlands for good reason. Shadowlands sucked. It was still a net negative expansion. But the questing experience of these 3 zones right here was kind of legit. Probably at least in part because it was so divorced from, you know, the jailer and from everything to do with that. The main thread going through these 3 zones was the drought and how to deal with it, culminating, it's worth noting, in Revendreth, where we figure out the cause of the drought finally. And it's like, aha! You know, and then that leads to the Revendreth raid and dealing with Denathrius. But yeah, there were a lot of really good side characters. There's one particular, I can't remember his name. It was the crafter steward. You remember him? Oh, hang on, maybe I can find him. It's obviously not who I picked. Ardenweald was too cheerful? Okay, we played different Ardenwealds. Mechanicos, that was him. Yeah, Ardenweald was horrifying in such a wonderful way. Like, they were facing permanent death of things thanks to a drought that they couldn't do anything with while they were being attacked by poachers. Like, there was this constant feeling of dread and falling behind and death. That was awesome. I swear I like happy and silly things, too. But no, my pick, I'm actually not going to my pick. I just want to look at something. But my pick is Naya. I noticed nobody mentioned her. So I'm going to start by saying I'm a little bit biased because she's voiced by Jeremy Leah, who is, I say without hyperbole, one of the best female voice actresses of the modern era. And I mean that. Like, as a voice director, I would be honored to direct for her. She has so much capacity to put so much into her performance. So there's little tiny, imperceptible little details that you're not even supposed to really notice that just invoke so much about what she's trying to convey. She played I forget what they're called, but the Fey lady here. She was one of the first characters we met when we first landed in Ardenweald. And she was the one who was trying to save the grove that had already was lost. It was already lost to the drought. And her story arc continued for a little bit of the first, I'd say, half or so of Ardenweald. Yeah, she didn't have a great time. That was very unpleasant. And her voice acting really added to that. But as usual, so many of these choices, everyone in chat mentioned many good choices too, because the side characters were kind of awesome in Shadowlands. We had some really great side characters in Shadowlands. But how about a major character? What's the best major character in Shadowlands? Clearly it's this dude. Hello. I have no identity. Sorry. So I was so torn on this that I gave it to 2 people. You can make fun of me for that. It's okay. I accept it. I embrace it. Uther's a funny one because he's only a main character if you go Bastion. If you don't, he has no presence. Well, extremely little presence in the story. He still counts, though. He is still a major character for an entire arc. And, of course, he was relevant to Sylvanas' arc towards the end there. Sylvanas herself would probably qualify, although there's an asterisk there. Renathal would absolutely count. Prince Renathal. Very good pick. Once again, we've got some good options here. So like I said, there were 2 I was very torn between. One was Adjutant Nikos. I love their movements. I love how mechanical and like how there's no flowiness to their movements. Because, of course, there isn't. They're golems. No, anyways, unrelated. One was Denathrius. Denathrius ultimately doesn't quite win it for me, definitively, because his character is so ruined by the jailer and his connection to the jailer. I hate to... That's going to come up more than a few more times. But it's true, Denathrius is made a worse character, just like Sylvanas is made a worse character by their connection to the jailer. Like, even what they did with Anduin is made worse because of his connection to the jailer. And I'm not just saying that because the jailer sucks, it's just... It's so bolted on and makes no sense. Yeah, if Denathrius was just operating on his own accord, and wasn't behind everything in the history of the entire franchise forever, then it would be fine, right? You don't need to make Denathrius the villain of the entire franchise, or the jailer for that matter, you could just make him behind the anima drought. We see on a very personal and macroscopic level exactly how bad the mana drought is going through the 3 zones of Shadowlands, right? That's already a sufficient cause for being a horrible person and a great villain. But no. No, he was doing it for the jailer. For no reason. I complained about this during the review, but the problem is so many of the minions of the jailer are loyal to him because he's the main villain. In other words, there is no reason. There's no actual explanation for it. Everyone is just stupidly loyal to the jailer. The end. And Denathrius is probably the worst example of that. Denathrius was arguably stronger than him in a much better place, and everything about the jailer's plans completely hinged on Denathrius. So why was he so low? It's never explained. They never even touch on it. Sure. Anyways, moving on. My actual pick for best major character is Venari. I really like Venari, and not just because she has an amazing voice actress. She was such an excellent example of someone who is like technically a good aligned on the side of good. Congrats, Valerian. Why are you doing Oldor? But really is mostly a villainous type individual, right? Like, most of her personality is very selfish, very transactional, very pragmatic. But she is sufficiently intelligent to recognize that good overall is good for her, and she operates accordingly. She goes out of her way many times to be helpful to us because she recognizes that that is probably the smart thing to do. And so she ingrains herself with us, ingratiates herself to us. She gives us things regularly and repeatedly without asking for something in return, so that we will consider ourselves indebted to her. Now, I was about to say, if you're paying attention, both of these characters have asterisks. That's why I gave both the award. It's because Denathrius is ruined by the jailer, and Venari is ruined by Shadowlands. War Within really pushed Venari forward as a character, and really added some additional needed depth and motivation behind there. Oh, really, Kira White Noise? Is that true? Yeah, where are we at? Oh, dude, we're right there! And yes, you're right. Valerian is killing raid bosses and is getting us credit. Valerian, keep killing raid bosses! Keep killing raid bosses! We need to hit level 3! Alright, best main character. Like it or not, there's only really, like, 3 characters who would qualify for the main slot in Shadowlands. So there's not a lot of competition this time around. And can I just say, it should have been Sylvanas. She should have won this award. As I talked about during the review, Sylvanas is a great, interesting, fascinating character, except when she isn't. It is so frustrating. There's a reason I gave her the award earlier for most inconsistent character, excuse me. It was because she is that close to being awesome so many times and then isn't. Or she is that awesome and then she isn't. So it's not Sylvanas, because she failed. Her Archon lied to her. Failed her! Okay, so it's not Sylvanas. Well, who does that leave? Well, it's not a lot of options left there. Option number 2 is Anduin. Anduin was really, really good in Shadowlands. I cannot argue that. But in the interests of fairness, I decided not to give it to him. Partially because Anduin has been a good character for a long time. Since Pandaria, really. Arguably since Kata. And he's also much, much, much more the main character of another expansion we'll get to in a minute. So in the interest of fairness, I decided to give it to the third and final option. Can you even guess? I'm actually curious. because most people probably don't even remember that this character exists, even though he is definitively the main protagonist of Shadowlands. I'm just going to pause for a moment. I'm legitimately curious if anyone can even remember that this guy exists. Hey! Little Billy got it. Little Billy, you win. Pick a game. I will put $3 towards a game of your choice. No, Huthor, you get it too, in the interest of fairness. It's Pelagos. For those of you who don't remember, Pelagos is one of the first characters we meet in Shadowlands proper. We meet, I think, Clea was her name, right off the bat. And then she leads us to Pelagos. And then Pelagos is with us as part of the MSQ all the way until the end of the patch MSQ, when he becomes the new Arbiter. He is a central focus of the narrative for a gargantuan chunk of it. And he continues to be relevant and keeps having screen time and keeps being a viewpoint character. He is the protagonist. He's the Titus. Might be a better way to put that. Even though it's arguably Yuna's story, Titus is... Oh, no, I'm sorry. Sorry, he's the Yuna. Sorry, I actually screwed that up. He's the Yuna, we're the Titus. There we go. Said that right now. So we all have to marry Pelagos now. Sorry. Might be. I don't make the rules. Hang on. So... Put that towards Pokemon Soul Silver and... Midnight. Done. Okay. He is, yes, Mr. Red. And by he, I mean us. Can remember, we're Titus. So, Mr. Red, find that kickball. Don't you mean Blitzball? Shut up. So what is the best new species design? I should mention they added a lot of new species designs in that. I don't like that song too much, but I never have. Even when it was new. Also, I thought it was a vanilla song, but whatever. See you around, J. Palmer. So, yeah, I've probably already given this away by where I am. But they added a lot of new stewards. Yeah, they added the guys over in Rivendreth. They all talk like this. You gotta get cuppa. You know, they got that, like, Cockney accent, you know, it's great. We have the Fae. Hang on, I can actually show you. Yeah, so we got the Drudges. Hang on a second. Now, I can show you some of these, because some of these are represented as bosses. So first of all, I guess we could talk about, so we've got the Venthyr, female Venthyr and male Venthyr. I think they're butt ugly, personally. But they're well designed, and they're a great indicator of the sheer level and scale of vanity that all of these people exhibit. We've got this. So this is the new Fae creatures. They're exactly as horrifying as you'd think. Yeah, very cool, very cool. Hang on. Is this him? Nope, damn. Oh, well, we also have the new female gargoyles, which look badass, by the way. And we have male gargoyles as well, which are also cool. So I guess gargoyles in general. We have the Kyrians, which, I mean, you can see roaming around here. It's these dudes. We added the brokers. No, the brokers. The brokers. The brokers. There we go. The brokers. Hey, there they are. And I have to admit, I actually really like the broker design. In fact, frankly, I like the broker design better than the old ethereal design. Then Koresh came out, and now I had to readjust that. Oh, yeah, I think you're right. Hang on. Raids. Nathria. Dance Macabre. Hey, here they are. The treasures are so great. They're so great. I mean, it's the goblin rigging, but whatever. They reused all kinds of riggings because this was Shadowlands when the office was formally on fire. So all of these are great, even just visually. But honestly, and you know it, you love it. Ooh. How are you?
Need sustenance? Bandages? A wet cloth?
There's some really horrible implications with these things.
My wares for you.
But I love their looks. They're so bouncy. And they're so cute. And they're just these cute owl people. And they're just, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
Please, take your time.
Oh, they're so cute. They're so cute. Oh my god, I love them. I love them to death. They are 100% underthought, as so much of the Shadowlands is. There's just... Again, this is purely visual design, and for me, the stewards take it, which is why I was hanging out around here this whole time. Okay. Best individual character design. Now, we've got a lot to choose from here. Shadowlands bosses and raid bosses and individuals looked badass. I just went through several of them. We've also got the new anima monstrosity things, which were retconned, and now we're actually interesting again. As so many other things. We got the giant dude who we actually encountered as part of the zones. We got Sergeant Uthris himself. Even though he's a male Draenei, he's still extremely badass looking. You know, it's just... I mean, look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Sorry. Ahem. We've got the new gargoyle mount thing. Actually, I could show you the gargoyle mount because I have it. Although I might not be able to mount it on this character. Nope. Yeah. Oh, well, whatever. Because I didn't go with Venthyr with this character. The Jailer actually does, unironically, have a very uninspired and boring design, which stands out even more in an expansion where a lot of people have a really cool and interesting design. Even Kel'Thuzad. No, he looks boring. Ah! Wrong button. We also had these things. All of the first one's tech. Which all had its very unique aesthetic of, like, blue slate metal with, like, that yellow glowing whatever. I don't even know what to call it, honestly. No, literally, Moog. Literally. Where's that at, Uther? Dasan. There. Yeah, no, that's extremely badass. See, I was spoiled for choice in this one. There's just... And again, even Anduin looks interesting here. Better than this nonsense. This is... I mean, this is better than his normal look, but I'm still not impressed. We had the broken Constellar while we're on the subject. But for me, there were two I was really torn between. The first was the Tarag, or this thing. The guy who had been a pain as you were questing throughout the Maw, and then was a raid boss at the beginning of this. So first of all, he's using the Grand model, and you know I love the Grand model, the Grand rigging, the Grand skeleton. Secondly, he actually is one of the things with this aesthetic that I think legitimately looks badass. Like, just the giant, spiked, white-plated death. He's just... And it just looks like this giant beast, you know? Yep, we were eaten by a Taragru. Yeah. Unlike, say, this guy who's just like, yeah, okay, whatever. And these are just boring. This is... I mean, this is a thing, I guess. But no. Hey, look, it's Odin's Eye. No, seriously. But the other one that I really liked, and I'm actually going to find this. I think it's in Dungeons. Hang on a second. Hang on. There it is. So, I mentioned before that I really like the Lich look from Warcraft 3. And if you remember, my favorite pick back in Vanilla was actually the Lich as well, for like Ross Frostwhisper and stuff, Arash the Summoner. One of the individual personal things I like most that Shadowlands did was flesh out the look of the Liches. There's actually quite a few variants. So technically this is like a plus for all of the individual Liches. Because they all had their own different looks now. They had different cloaks and different shoulders and different, like, accoutrements. And they're a modern take. That's what it is. It's the modern team looking at the Liches. There's actually another one over here. See? Yeah, Margrave Sindane, which unfortunately I can't get, like, an easy image of, looks badass. She looks extremely cool. Maybe I could just fly up there. Hang on, let's see if I can go look that up. But I really, really like what they did with the Lich look. Yeah, let's try it there. So that's going to be a minute. So while we're traveling, let's talk about the worst story arc. Okay, so we all know the worst story arc. It's the jailer. But I decided that that was too easy. So I decided to get a little more granular. And I realized that the part of the jailer's arc specifically that is the worst for me personally is the fact that he's behind absolutely everything. Which, if you remember, mostly comes up in Kurthia. Continuing to remind us of why Kurthia is the worst zone in the entire game. But hang on. Even that felt like cheating, because of course that's the worst story arc. So I decided to challenge myself a second time. What's the worst story arc that has nothing to do with the jailer? Well, I mean, yeah. Okay, fair. How do you spell Erelon? Because it's not the way you spelled it, either. I'm trying to remember who you're talking about. Yeah, I was thinking maybe it's the fact that they screwed over Sylvanas, but they screwed over Sylvanas because of the jailer. There he is. Oh, that. Yes. No, yeah, that's not great. Yeah, the Devourers that went absolutely nowhere. Arthas, that has to do with the jailer. Anduin, jailer. Yeah, no, the problem is the jailer infects so much of the Shadowlands that this proved to be quite a challenge. And I was very torn on this. It's why the jailer is so memed on. It's why everybody hates him. It's why he's only been mentioned once ever since then. And yeah, as someone in chat mentioned it, we show up in Maldraxxus, and then we see the Margrave, who then dies. Yeah, literally on the loading screen. Voice acted, even. And then, he's dead. As we talked about, it's very clear that Maldraxxus was supposed to be a bad guy faction. Like, it's very obvious if you look at the pieces and put them together. And they changed course on that probably last minute because Office is on fire. I did finally come up with one. It was very difficult to find something that I thought was sufficiently detached from the jailer. It's still connected to the jailer because every frickin' thing is, but hear me out for a second. It's the Maldraxxus Covenant campaign specifically, which is bad at least in part because of the fact that it is basically the same damn series of quests that we already saw in the Bastion. Maldraxxus was already kind of dumb. But yeah, go make the special weapon for the special guide, and then, okay, we're done. Like, it was not good.
Margaret Sindane has asked for our assistance in dealing with allies of Keldus.
Hey, there she is. So, yeah, that is a badass looking Lich. I'm glad I could show this off. I'm going to change my answer retroactively to Margrave Sindane specifically. I like all the new Lich models, but that is so cool. This is kind of like a logical development of the Lich model, the female Lich model they added back in Wrath. So, yeah, just how many of you even really remember the Maldraxxus campaign? Just to hammer that point in, like we talked about, if you were paying attention earlier, I kind of did this deliberately. Horns are cool. What? Oh, there's another Lich over there. Oh, hello, Lich. I can attack him. I don't want to attack him. I just want to look at him. Hello, other Lich. Yeah, nobody remembers it because it's dumb, it's boring, and then Kel'Thuzad is awful. I'm not even joking. Like, I mentioned earlier that the story arc through Bastion, Ardweald, and Revendreth is legit, and I stand by that. All three of these zones are good zones. They're good zones gameplay-wise, they're good zones visually. Revendreth has some issues if you can't fly in it, but that's not an issue anymore, so that didn't count for the review. All three of these zones were good zones with good quests, with good story, and then there was Maldraxxus. And Maldraxxus just kind of failed at everything. And that's the simplest way I can explain it. This entire zone just kind of flopped. Even from an overworld design perspective, it was easily the second most frustrating to fly around, to navigate without flying. And it's only second because Revendreth is Revendreth. Yeah, it commits one of the worst sins a zone can do. It's unmemorable. Okay. Best arc. Best story arc. Yes, it was the Be Right Back arc from Kennex Cow. Your Archon has lied to you. Failed you. Sorry. I love the way he just throws himself into the word failed there. He just absolutely throws himself into it. Interestingly, I do think Uthor is actually a pretty solid arc. Even the way it dovetailed into Sylvanas' eventual arc, such as it is. Sorry. Uthor was pretty strong, 100%. I'm actually not going to go with that, though, for my pick. My pick is a cheat, if I'm being honest. I still stand by it, though. Favorite meme per expansion. Your Archon. Uther. And look, Uthor, I've got bad news. You are now Uther. Sorry. Nothing personal. It's just business. Hang on one second. I'm just gonna set something up for later because duh. That should do. And death to the living. Maybe we'll circle back to that. We'll circle back. We'll do that as like a bonus finale thing. So for me, damn it, Uthor. I would actually say that probably the best. Sorry, wrong direction. The best overall story arc in Shadowlands is the Drought. The Drought has the least to do with the Jailer of everything going on in Shadowlands, which, yeah. And the reason I say it's a cheat is because it's actually a 3-zone arc. The first thing we find out about when we get to Oribos is the Drought, and how they haven't even activated some of the people because they don't have the anima to run them. And it's a constant presence. In the Bastion, we find out that it's been preventing people from ascending. In Ardenweald, we see that it's literally causing Ardenweald to rot and die, and it's preventing reincarnation from happening. And we get to Revendreth, and everyone there is in a more like personal way. So it's like a soul suffrage, a life suffrage, and like a everyday suffrage. I'm explaining that badly, but I talked about it better during the review. In all three cases, it's a different angle on what a drought does to people. And it is really, at the end of the day, just a drought. I mean, it may be a drought of a magical essence rather than water, but it's very much written and coded as a drought. And that works. Like, it was devastating, and they did a really good job of showcasing that on a micro and on a macro level. And I loved it. It was great. And then they kind of threw that all out the window. Yeah, it was just a resource scarcity commentary, but it was really well done. And again, was something they just kind of pretended not existed anymore. After that, Castle Nothria was just flooded with anima. Just pounds and pounds and tons and kegs of it. They've probably been storing it up for years. Anyways, I really liked that arc. It was probably one of the only story arcs I could just point to and say, yes, in Shadowlands. And that's a rarity. So, what's the worst cutscene in Shadowlands?
This must not be.
You have betrayed your duty as Arbiter, and shall be bound forevermore. Your madness has threatened the cycle of life and death entire.
You could have sought another way, brother. Imagine what we could have accomplished together.
Why, Zovar? What drove you to this end? You preserve that which is doomed. A cosmos divided will not survive. What is to come?
Sorry, everyone. The jailer was always the good guy. My B. My B. I just, oh my god. I just, do I need to, I've already dissected this. I've already spent so much time dissecting this cutscene and explaining exactly how terrible it really is. Just, questline punch Deathwing to the face is better story than Shadowland. It takes about 10 minutes. I'm gonna punch that dragon in the face. Oh my god. As I talked about, I'm actually with Mr. Oh my god, you've got to be kidding me. I hate you, Valerian. I want you to know that on a deeply personal level, I hate you. I will never forgive you for this. Okay, I'm sorry. I gotta explain this. I spent over a decade farming Nimron's head, which was the drop from Yogg-Saron 0, okay? Never dropped. At one point in time, I had all of my alts parked at Uldor, and I would just hit Uldor like 5, 6, 8 times a week. Never dropped. Then I went and during the super mount drop event, I started getting super mounts all over the place. Yeah, I got that mount, and I got that mount, I got this, and I get this, and everything's all cool. Isn't this great? And the freaking head wasn't dropping. And as time progressed, it kept not dropping. And I wasn't stressed about it. It's fine. The drop rate is massively increased. I've gotten all the other mounts. When it got to the point where I had like, I don't remember how long. It was a relatively short period of time left in that event. I started to freak out a little bit because the head still hadn't dropped. With the 10 times drop rate, it still hadn't dropped. And I'm like, okay, I got to focus on this. I got to do this. And I just started mulching Ulduar. And I did finally get it. I did finally get the stupid helmet, or the stupid head, the stupid mount, which I'll never use. Out of spite, I will never use that mount. God damn it. I was cursed. I was cursed with that head. And I'm sorry, everyone. I just couldn't get head. Alright, so let's go ahead. It's not a good looking mount. It's a terrible mount. It's not great. Okay, right, no, sorry. So let's talk about how much this cutscene sucks. I did my due diligence on the good cutscenes. Let's talk about the bad cutscene. This cutscene sucks. Okay. Okay, let's get some music going. I've got this StarCraft theme going on here. This is a good song to play. And for basically I've discovered everyone talks about how Guile's theme fits everything, and they're wrong. Because you know what really fits everything? I'm kind of serious. Like it doesn't fit everything, but the amount of things that Terran music from StarCraft 1 fits is kind of weird. So let's talk about this goddamn cutscene for a second. First of all, as we talked about during the run, one of the things that pisses me off most about it is it came close to working. As I talked about a few times, yeah, no kidding. As I talked about a few times, the idea of the broken robot does appeal to me. The problem with the broken robot is they've already done that. We already have the broken robot. It's called Sargeras. And the jailer was just broken robot again. And so, if you remember, my big suggestion to make the jailer work was to lean into it more. To really make him completely mechanical. Completely unchained. Turn him into a completely eldritch, Lovecraftian, uncaring, barely acknowledges the player exists kind of a villain. That's just following through on its base programming to the best of its abilities, right? And I emphasize it. Like, remove all personality there. Just make this machine that's like... And just make it, like, horrifically awful without any malevolence. Yeah, because exactly, Zaval's main character trait was his sadism. The one thing he was consistently had... Yeah, the Numidian, great example. The one trait that Zaval consistently had was he was sadistic. And he would constantly do things to be cruel for no reason other than to be cruel. Now, that's not exactly an uncommon trait in a villain, but that's sort of the problem, isn't it? It contributes to the genericness of him. Remove all of that malevolence. Remove the malice. Remove the care. He doesn't even notice the people he's torturing. We talked about this during the run. One of the ideas we came up with was that at some point someone asks him, why are you horribly torturing the souls dumped into the maw? And the jailer is like confused by the question, because it's like, why? This is what gets the most energy. This is what produces the most anima out of the souls. Like, it's just this very blank response, right? Very detached response of just this is the most efficient way to extract anima. If you will excuse me. And it goes back to torturing some soul horribly, and it's just completely impassive, right? Yeah, it's just the result of the equation. I think that could have worked. So the fact that a lot of people rag on the fact that the jailer's a robot, I think they should have made him more of a robot. I think they should have leaned into that instead of just whatever this nonsense is. And by this nonsense, I mean this nonsense. Sorry, I forgot I was still on the wrong tab there. Yeah, maybe he doesn't even understand the concept of torture. That's actually great. What if he doesn't understand the concept of pain? This result of stimuli results in the most production of anima. And like, while he's talking in a completely bland, detached voice, there's someone screaming. You can hear someone's voice screaming as he's torturing this soul. And they're like, stop! And it's like, why? I am endeavoring to fix... You can even tie this into the anima drought. I am endeavoring to fix the anima drought. You know, there was all kinds of directions they could have taken that. Nope! Nothing. He's just... Instead, he's just like, Ugh. So that's the first thing, the failed potential here. The second thing is, let's just abstract this for a second. Let's zoom out for a moment, which I usually don't do with these. This stupid goddamn scene was pulling a trick. And Takoda actually referenced this yesterday. It's a trick that fiction is way too in love with. It's the villain was doing good all along thing, right? Now, this can work. And then there's Fable 3. Right? Like, this can work. And then there's what they tried to do with Palpatine. The idea of, yes, I was horribly torturing and destroying people, but it was for a good cause. Illidan, I actually think, in Legion specifically, I know who disagrees with this, I think Illidan in Legion was a good example of this. I would also say in Warcraft 3, now that I'm saying that out loud. Most specifically Frozen Throne. In Frozen Throne, Illidan basically damned himself by his own ego and stupidity. And if he had actually talked with anybody at any point in time, that might have actually worked out. Instead, he was like, Rah! So he kind of screwed himself over there. But the point is, that can work, and it turbo doesn't here. It turbo doesn't. Turning this asshat and trying to be it was all for good all along thing, just rubbed a lot of people the wrong way immediately. So even if this was well done... Yeah, exactly, can I tell? Even if this was well done, you're kind of starting on the back foot, right? You're already starting downhill to make this thing work. And this super was not well done. You'll also notice that what they do is they have him be like, Cosmos divided. And then they shove him off camera so hard that he has only been mentioned once since then. Since Dragonflight, I should say more accurately. Once. They shoved him off screen so hard. And yeah, it's also worth noting that his overall plan, which they were very clear about, was that he was trying to, like, erase everything, rewrite all of reality, both life and afterlife. Because, speaking of which, they were trying to up the stakes. This is another thing. This is actually related to this. So the Jailer was an attempt to up the stakes, which, as I've talked about, is usually a dumb idea. If you have a big galactic level threat like Sargeras, and you try to one-up yourself from there, you've probably already failed at your given task. This is a problem with almost all of fiction. Any long-standing franchise has this problem. I was going to cover that episode, but thanks for reminding me. Almost all of fiction has this problem where they really want to bigger stakes, bigger stakes, bigger stakes, bigger stakes. So yeah. Anytime you hit multiversal, you've already gone too far. No, Blade to All. Well, Dragon Age 2 didn't do bigger stakes. It did smaller stakes. That's how it worked. That's how it worked. That's why it worked. So Adam Ciota points out something valid. The entire final patch was called Eternity's End. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, let's look this up. Let's look this up. Eternity's End. Let's see what pops up when we search for Eternity's End. Let's see here. Oh, that's insulting. It pulled up that thing first. Hang on, let's try. Let's make this a little bit more specific. Hey, look! Oh, wrong wiki. God damn it. Wrong wiki. Okay, fine. Over here. Hey, look! So, the final cutscene of Warcraft 3 is called Eternity's End, and the entire final campaign of Warcraft 3, the Night Elf campaign, is called Eternity's End. Tell me that wasn't on purpose. And I talked about this during the review. One of the things, and I didn't hold this against the game, because it's information out of the game. However, from a personal perspective, what the devs wouldn't shut up about the entire time was how this was the biggest threat ever, and this was the end of the entire Warcraft story, and all of Warcraft lore and history were all being tied up into this one big conclusion command. This is going to be the expansion to be the final bookend of all of Warcraft. Bullshit. And it was. It was a complete lie. It was a monstrously huge lie, done by people who were desperately trying to save a game that was actively dying. But it pissed me off, and it probably made the situation worse, because anyone paying attention who had a functioning brain looked at that and said, no. So, yeah, naming it after. What? Sis says I don't have a functioning brain. Sorry, everyone. No, the sabotage, we talked about it. There was a legitimate possibility that there was actual sabotage going on. Remember, this is when the office was on fire. This is actually the worst of the office being on fire. This was like peak flames, right? Everything was terrible. You know, allegations were happening, or were finally coming forward, and people were getting fired for being terrible human beings. And there was everything going on with, they were in the middle of legal battles over all this crap. No, it was canned PR, exactly. But the problem is it made it worse. It was insulting. Eternity's End. Bullcrap. But then, so we upped the stakes, or we tried to up the stakes with the Jailer. But then, I didn't even finish my point there, because then they tried to up the stakes from the Jailer. And I want to stress the Jailer was already supposed to be a multiversal threat. All dimensions, all realities, life and death. But wait, there's something even worse after him. And let me tell you, nothing made me groan harder than when I first saw this cutscene. And he was like, a cosmos divided. I'm like, oh, no. Don't you dare try to type this up into an even biggier, baddier villain. We don't need to fight Ultra Mega Super Mondo Boo 5000. And I could zoom in more. Even like from a construction perspective, this isn't a very good cutscene. Why is this cutscene done from Zoval's perspective? I know that's a strange thing to call out, but this, when you're doing this kind of cutscene construction, and when you throw yourself into the viewpoint of a character, generally speaking, what you're doing is you're trying to humanize, for lack of a better word, that character. This can work in some cases, even if it's a villain. We actually see this with Sylvanas in this very expansion. But they do this with the jailer. So this is his viewpoint, his perspective. The cosmos divided. The cosmos divided. All right, there's actually one dude they never even show here, which I find hysterical. It's the guy we're actually looking down at him as. Which I just... It's a weird-ass choice. I am now dead. I could keep going. For the sake of brevity, I will not. Screw this cutscene. I still actually think Draenor is Free is a worse cutscene pound for pound. Like review-wise, I think Draenor is Free is a worse cutscene. But this cutscene pisses me off so hard. What's that, Blade Devon? No, Spartan. God willing, we never will. It's okay. It's okay. We're all robots. We're all robots. It's okay. Oh, jeez. That's even better. That's almost Pokemon Shield, but like done better, right? There might be something bigger. There might be some larger scale threat out there somewhere. And I have to prepare just in case there's a bigger threat. Actually, FF14 did that, didn't they? I can't explain how, but FF14 did that. Omega. Or the Omicrons, or whatever they were called. Listen, Huthor. Listen. Stab! Alright, so. But, yeah, I'm going to let this song conclude, because it's awesome. Okay. What's the best cutscene in Shadowlands? Do keep in mind there's plenty of things that could qualify as a best cutscene, right? We've already given this to things that are like, you know, in-engine cutscenes, in-gameplay cutscenes. I try not to give this to the pre-rendered cinematics, because that is almost always cheating, right? Pre-rendered cinematics are fantastic. Alright, I'm ready, Huthor. I'm ready to stab you. I'm ready. This Brutosaur over here represents Huthor. Do you see it at the top of the screen there? Up there? Yeah, that's... Yeah, right up there. That's Huthor. Right over there. I don't count the animatics. That's its own... We had a whole separate vignette thing. Vignettes are different. The Ardenweald Walk. Yeah. No, that's a good one. That is a very good one. I know StarCraft on the screen. I even aimed it specifically so you can see the Brutosaur up there. Do you see him? See? He's right there. He's right by my buffs over there. Do you see him? He's like, hi. I'm Huthor. This is my canonical voice. Sylvanas versus Tyrande. I had issues with that scene, but it was actually pretty well done in several ways, so I'll give you that. Here, I tell you what. We'll show the real Huthor. Hang on, let's. I gotta do this weird because there we go. There's the real Huthor, the third Lich King. I'm just kidding. It's actually Darien. Hi, Huthor. Where's the real Huthor here? I mean, I was considering that for worst until I realized that the Jailer one is just worse in every way. That was kind of a knee-jerk answer. Who are these two losers? Have you ever heard of these people? Hang on. Varisa and Illyria. That doesn't... Has anyone heard of these people before? For me...
Sylvanas' soul has been fractured. From the moment of her death until now.
Burn it! This was their home. And you slaughtered all of them! How could you take all those innocent lives? This was beyond life and death. There was no other path to true freedom. How can you not see that? I see what you are. Murderer! Monster! Butcher! Why can I not escape this torment?
The jailer has severed their bond and condemned her to endlessly relive her atrocities.
Pause. I just have to point out that once again, the jailer is forcing her to relive this over and over out of pure malice because he's just a dickhead. Remember, that's pretty much his only real motive, his only real characterization is that he is sadistic. Continuing.
So long as her soul remains divided, she cannot wake.
Maybe she shouldn't.
She's the only one who knows the jailer's plan and how we might save Anduin.
She's the one that turned Anduin.
Jaina is right. How can we possibly trust her?
Her wound runs so much deeper than mine. Well met, Ranger General.
What is this? Who are you?
Someone who shared your fate, felled by the blade of the very same prince.
Arthas. I died trying to stop that monster, only to wake up haunted by one with my face.
That Banshee is you.
No. I cannot accept that.
Her path began where yours ended, and you've seen the decisions she made.
Never in 1,000 lifetimes would I betray everything I stood for. You can't possibly understand.
The jailer is deceptively cunning. When I realized I had become his pawn, it nearly destroyed me. He had no doubts it would destroy you as well. Was he right? Or will you accept her shattered legacy and tell us how to stop him?
Her crimes are unforgivable.
Yes.
And she...
Burn it!
I must face the consequences.
We cannot change the past, and we may never find forgiveness in the future. But inaction damns us all. Time is short, Ranger General. Make your choice. I've done all I can.
God, that ended quickly. Just boop. Yeah, no, same bit, same camera style, same animation style, and same music from Legion when Vol'jin died and she was put into the War Chief slot. Suddenly, Tim Curry! Yeah! Wow, it's better all of a sudden. I'll be honest, there are actually several good cutscenes in Shadowlands, and there are several, but that one really just worked for me. And this is gonna sound funny because this is gonna sound like I'm actually saying how bad the cutscene is. So bear with me for a second. What I like most about that cutscene is it's the beginning of good story. Not the end of it. They don't really do much with it. It's a fascinating concept, though. It is such a fascinating concept, and arguably has been in the game since Wrath. Technically, it's been in the game since Warcraft 3. And they don't do anything with it. They have actually never done anything with this concept. The idea is actually really simple. No, exactly what we're talking about. The idea is very simple. In Warcraft, you have a concept of a soul. Your soul can be ripped out or shredded. When that happens, what happens is there is now two distinct people. Or 3 or 18 or whatever. Two very, very distinct people. That's fine. That's a fork. That's old fiction. That's common in a lot of things. That's whatever. But in Warcraft in particular, the possibility exists of re-merging those souls back into a new entity. And that's interesting to me. Because how do you deal with that? You are in many ways the same person who made whatever decisions were made by both previous entities. And you have all the memories and personality and perspectives of both. In basically every way, you are now another new entity. In place of the previous two, in place of the previous one. And there's a lot you can do with that, with identity and with consequence, with guilt. Yeah, it's the Kingdom Hearts thing. There's a lot you could do with this, and they kind of don't. And that's the problem. But it is still a very well done cutscene that laid down a lot of groundwork for some interesting stuff. It really started pulling Sylvanas forward as a character, finally. Arguably, the stuff we've been seeing recently has been, pushed forward because of that. You get my point. That's why I put that one as the best. Also, they finally did something with Uther. Holy crap, could you imagine? Let's wrap up Shadowlands and get out of here. What's the worst overall negative? What's the most personal negative for you? Unique negative for Shadowlands. The thing that to you is just the worst thing about it. It's obviously the airport. I mean, clearly. That's a cool looking rack there. I keep wanting to say Evoker. Yes? The meme answer, Revendreth without flying. I mean, the Jailer is an interesting pick. Really. You want what?
I want to play games.
Sure, come on.
I love watching you play games.
Gosh, that's amazing. I'm going to steal the rest of your teeth.
No, they're not in right now.
Oh, I give you candy, but I don't think you should have candy.
No.
Hang on.
Because you're not with some too.
Okay, now you have to both be quiet because I'm in the middle of talking. That's the deal, okay?
Okay.
Okay. So the worst... Shh, nope, you have to be quiet. You have to be quiet.
No, Dad. Dark has that. Dark friend.
Here, I'll turn into a dragon just for you. How's that?
And both of those sharks are friends.
They are friends. Of course they're here. Let's put them together. So the sharks are together. There we go.
They love being together.
Exactly.
Sharks always get that. That's a daddy shark and that's
I said they could be here for a minute. Oh, you're in the middle of lunch?
I'm full. The eggs are too salty. I'm full.
The eggs are too salty?
You're about to put too much salt in the egg.
Well, okay, that's a valid thing. Could you ask for more eggs that aren't salty then?
I'm not hungry anymore. That's another reason.
Okay, well, that means
I'm
no
not
treats.
hungry anymore.
Okay, hang on. Let me go ahead and put this on your head. So for me, the office being on fire was a very unique thing to Shadowlands. And honestly, we're still kind of coming out of that even to this very day.
Don't destroy all those crazy monsters.
It's okay. They're friendly monsters. But for me...
No, monsters are mean.
You have to be quiet. Shh. You have to be quiet. Here, I'll run around a bunch for you, but you have to be quiet, okay? So, for me, the single biggest unique negative to Shadowlands is an extremely personal thing.
Monsters that are bad.
Hey, hey, hey,
Why
baby,
so
baby, baby.
high and can destroy them?
Okay, yep, sorry.
Kayla is the only one talking.
Okay. What? You?
Stay with him.
Well, then you have to be quiet, okay? This is your last chance. You have to be quiet. If you start talking again, I'm going to push you out, okay?
Okay.
Okay. I know it's hard. I know it's difficult. Here, I'll give you something to play with. And, actually, I've got something for you. You ready?
What is it?
I'll show you. That's for you. Gonna have to stay up here. Got this one just for you.
You said that you will give me,
Oh, sorry.
give me your own dragon.
I know, the dragon's still on its way. But that is your own little ghost. See? Can I see it for a second so I can show the stream? I got her a ghastly. Here you go. So, the personal thing for me...
so weird.
The personal thing for me that is the absolute worst thing about Shadowlands was that it made me quit the game. I know that's a kind of a cheat. Really? Nope, no talking. I told you, no talking. So, come on. Nope, you talked. That's the line. Come on. Ugh. Out you get. I'm gonna fling you. Out you go. Thank you.
Two things.
Ah! I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to hold you. Like, all of the things about Shadowlands kicked me out of the game. And I want to stress, I've talked about this before. I quit WoW. I straight up quit WoW. I don't mean I took a break from WoW. I don't mean I paused playing WoW. I don't mean I went and played other games for WoW. I quit WoW. Shadowlands was so bad on so many different levels. And then I started becoming aware of what was going on behind the scenes and looked into the behind the scenes more and started doing my own homework and my own research. And it just started becoming this whole mess. And yeah, Kennex Cow is right. Someone actually mentioned this. So we were playing Expedition 33. No spoilers, don't worry. We were playing Expedition 33, and I mentioned that I have a fairly firm no LLM AI-generated slop policy. You put that crap in your game, I'm out. And several games that were on the list got axed. Mostly my games, the games that I wanted to play, were axed as a result of that. And so, the reason this is relevant is someone made the point of, oh, well, if WoW added AI-generated slop, you wouldn't quit the game. To which I said, try me. And someone went to bat for me in chat, y'all are awesome, and pointed out that I've already quit this game once because of stuff outside of the game, because of real-life stuff. You think I won't again? It really was kind of a bubble burst situation for me, because obviously WoW has been my home since I was in a wheelchair. I can point to that definitively. I can actually remember the moment I was questing in Ashenvale on my Draenei Priest. This is actually in BC, specifically. I was questing in Ashenvale on my Draenei Priest, and I was going through Astronar. And I can remember the exact quest I was on. It was the gentleman who's trying to help his daughter. You remember that quest? And he sends you to go do boring, stupid gather quests in order to gather materials for her. And actually, I'm not sure if that was his quest back in vanilla, but it's that guy. And I just sort of realized as I was walking through and listening to the music and seeing the lush purple and green foliage, this is home. This is the place where I felt safe. This is the place where I actually felt like it was okay to let the guards down and just kind of be myself for a bit. And since this was BC and the new account, if you remember, this is also when I had started really being able to flex my knowledge of the game. That's not an elitism thing or even a bragging thing, but rather it was because I had the ability to help real-life people. It was in a video game, and it was for video game reasons, but I wasn't just my character was saving the world. I was helping make other people's lives just a little bit better. And that made WoW home. Then they burned my home back in BFA, which I never really recovered from. And then Shadowlands came out. And I feel like that's just... I don't have to explain it. And then Shadowlands came out. And everything about Shadowlands and the lead up to it and the follow through of it and so much of the bungling and the behind the scenes and the abuse and the allegations and the legal crap and the garbage and everything to do with Codex Crony, whose name I can never remember and I'm never going to write down because I don't give enough of a damn to actually remember his stupid name. And everything about it just made me go, you know what? I'm good. It is also worth noting that this is technically a twofer, because the same things that made me quit Shadowlands, quit WoW, almost killed WoW. As I will continue to repeat, we have data and figures at this point proving what for a while was just a theory, that WoW did nearly die. It nearly dipped below profitability during Shadowlands, and there was a problem there. Which brings me to the best and most positive, unique thing about Shadowlands. And the answer is Shadowbringer. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It did save Guild Wars 2. I was tempted. Literally saved Guild Wars 2. And provided a fairly large boost to FF14's player base, which it then bled out because FF14 refused to do anything. I shouldn't blame the devs. That's not the devs' fault. Square freaking refused to support the FF14 team and allow them to adjust and acknowledge the massive new incoming player bases. And so they bled out almost all those players. That sucks. I hope FF14 will be here in a year. Anyways, and not be made worse. There's worse than pulling the plug, after all. It did get rid of Bobby Kotick. That is true. And Huthar's right. They started developing the housing thing all the way back in Shadowlands. But that is still technically. No. My answer is going to amuse anybody who doesn't know me. Oh, no, it's going to surprise anybody who doesn't know me. It's going to amuse anybody who does. WoW Classic. Now, WoW Classic had been kicked around for a while previously. It wasn't something that just cropped up out of nowhere. But Shadowlands is when WoW Classic really started to get into its own swing and started doing its own thing. And quite literally saved WoW. And that person's just running backwards. We're just ignore that. I'm dead serious, though. WoW Classic is a good thing. I'm glad it exists. I ain't touching that crap. I'd rather rip off my head and eat it. But I am legitimately happy and grateful that WoW Classic exists, because it should. It also has been a nearly universal positive on just the game as a whole. WoW has become a better game since WoW Classic exists, and the two player bases have kind of slowly divided amongst the two. And of course, historical preservation is awesome, because I was pissed even back in Cataclysm that they got rid of vanilla, even though I hated vanilla so much. I hated vanilla so much. You think I hate vanilla now? No. Nowadays, I'm willing to talk about it and be reasonable. Back in the day, oh my god, I just wanted to rip it apart. I wanted it to die. But that's okay. Let's leave Shadowlands behind. Hopefully forever. Well, wrong house, but whatever. Still a cool housing area. Well, in fairness, you're both right, Lord Harrowmont and Brig, because there are metrics that can prove that the WoW retail player base has actually gotten substantially better since a large number of assholes went over to WoW Classic. I'm just going to say it. I'm sorry. It's just such a great way to put it. There are plenty of cool people in WoW Classic. Of course they are. Don't be silly. I know several cool people. I even know Huthor. Sorry, that's a dumb joke. But the point is, there are several... Yeah, there's the hardcore crowd that still wanted WoW, that went over to WoW Classic, left this space. And WoW retail has done nothing but get better ever since as a consequence. And I don't just mean like in terms of content or an approach or anything like that. I mean, the number of cool, interesting, fun, positive interactions that have started being a normal thing in WoW retail ever since Classic came out is a measurable statistic. And it's not something that's just anecdotal to me. Yeah, exactly, Huthor. Like, a lot of... So I say a lot of assholes went to Classic, but it's worth noting, again, in the interest of fairness. And, oh my god, that's a... Oh, that's cool. Oh, look at it. Look at it. Hang on, hang on. Check it out. They've got, like, rocks and, like, a little staircase thing going up. Little porch leading up to this. And it's, like, up here on this rock, too. That's cool. That's cool. I like that. Good job, whoever this is. There's a total stranger. I have no idea who these people are. This is another good one. Look at this. This place. Oh my god. What the hell? Oh yeah, hang on. How do we go in? We go in the only way possible. Oh no, I can't! It won't let me. No! Anyways, but no, a lot of people wanted WoW Classic for a lot of reasons. Good, bad, and in between, right? And it was a valve that needed venting, for lack of a better way to put it. And they did it smart, too. They basically copied what EverQuest had been doing at this point for a few years. So at first we had WoW Classic. That was the test bit. That was during Shadowlands, or actually it was technically, I think, during BFA, but whatever. That worked. Cool. Go forward with it. Because there's the WoW Classic, and it just sits there. Oh, Holly's amazing. Holly's such a great person. WoW Classic just sits there. And that's WoW Vanilla. And that's it. It's a good question, little Billy. And then there's... Okay. And then there's the progression server. So for those who know where EverQuest has this thing where, like, it'll go to, you know, EverQuest, I don't remember the name of all the expansions, like the vanilla EverQuest. And then it'll go to the first expansion. Then that server will update to the first expansion. Then it'll update to the second expansion and the third expansion and so on until it reaches like an arbitrary point, and then it'll reset back to vanilla and it'll loop. Does that sound familiar? Because that's exactly what WoW Classic was. There's a reason BC is launching again. Now? Previous to now? It's around now is when BC had its own rotation around. So, no, I'm actually quite happy that Classic exists for a lot of reasons. Like I said, it was a valve that needed to be vented. Too much pressure was building up there. Because, yeah, there was a lot of... Back during the WoW lore run, which as a reminder was 9 years ago, fresh reminder that we're all old. During the WoW lore run, people would not stop asking me about Vanilla and Nostalrius and how amazing, how super fantastically amazing WoW Vanilla was. And they wanted to hear me, what they wanted was they wanted me, because they saw me streaming WoW, they wanted me to gush about how awesome WoW Vanilla was. And I wasn't going to, because I hated it. But... And this is why I say that I'm a little bit more moderate now. I'm a little bit more willing to be tolerant, understanding, and consequential of nuance, is because at the time, one of the things that made me hate WoW Vanilla even more than my own experiences with it was the fact that people wouldn't shut up about it. People would... It was such a constant thing, not just in my streaming life. It was this constant refrain from everywhere. You couldn't get away from the whinging. And I do say whinging, because most of the people who just wanted WoW Vanilla weren't complaining about it. They were just quietly thinking, man, it'd be great if I could go play WoW Vanilla again. But the people who were loud and obnoxious about it, I just wanted to smack them upside the head and be like, quit it! God damn it, shut up! So that valve finally got vented, and those people finally got their own thing, and WoW Classic finally existed. Thank God. There's a little bit of initial whinging there, if you remember, when people were like, ugh, but it's not exactly the same as the original because it's physically impossible to do that now. Yeah, remember hashtag no changes? You remember that? Yeah. Anyways. Also true, Huthor. Like I said, it took me... I will admit, I will throw the egg on my own face here. I will. I will admit that it took me a while to acknowledge that there were good and valid reasons to want WoW Vanilla again. Because it was the non-stop cacophony I was hearing from all directions was the assholes, you know? People who... This is a real example. People who hated War Within because one of the main characters was a black woman. Like, just... I got so sick of the noise. But they did it. We have WoW Classic. WoW Classic saved WoW. And as a result of that, we got two things out of that. A lot of people got to go off and do the thing they've been wanting to do for years. And we got these adorable little... We got Dragonflight. So, hang on. Breath of fresh air, breath of fresh air. Cleansing. I will admit, I didn't expect let me start with this. I didn't expect Dragonflight to score as well as it did. Because I honestly expected at least part of my own personal enjoyment of Dragonflight came from everything that led into it, right? Again, I quit WoW. Me and Pax, we walked away from it. We went on to play other games. There's other stuff to do. We got other co-op stuff we can do. We're fine. We're fine. Yeah, exactly. So I was concerned that one of the only reasons I really liked Dragonflight was because it wasn't Shadowlands. I call it the honeymoon period, right? But then we got to Dragonflight, and we reviewed it, and good news, it really is that freaking good. It's not perfect. It's actually still, in many ways, kind of it's like a bridge expansion, because it still had several problems and flaws from the previous era of WoW, right? Which makes sense, of course, because most of the people who worked on the previous era were still working on Dragonflight. Remember, most of this expansion was being made while the office fire was still a thing. While they were still putting out the fires in the office during so again, it's always offset, right? So Shadowlands was out when they were working on Dragonflight, so there was still a whole lot of problems here. But it's still Dragonflight, so here we are. So let's start with the worst gimmick. Obviously, it's dragonflying. I've actually heard people say that, unironically. I try to be very tolerant, understanding, perspective, you know. Everyone has preferences, opinions. That is so goddamn alien to me. I say without hyperbole that dragonflying is one of the best features the entire game has. This one feature has done so much to revitalize so much of the game that I am gobsmacked at the idea that it's a bad thing. Like, this is right up here with the new talent system. I don't mean the talents necessarily themselves. I mean the entire system and interface designed around it with, like, the ability to save, the ability to search, the ability to mark things in advance, the ability to gradiently do the whole system, right? Like, it's a great system. And then, of course, we have Delves, which has just been a knock-it-out-of-the-park success, which is phenomenal. And Transmog is another really, really big one. Like, so, like, Transmog, Dragon Flying, the current talent system, and Delves are some of the best features WoW has ever had, in my honest opinion. Really looking forward to that Labyrinth, by the way. You know the one. The Delve Raid. God, that's going to be so badass. I hope. Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. So yeah, Dragonflight. Right, yes, so. Worst. The cooking pot. Okay. I'm pretty sure that was technically BFA, Lord Haramond. But, like, I remember back there, it was kind of weird and buggy and broken. because it's gone through iterations, right? But I'm pretty sure the invention of the level in whatever expansion you want to thing was BFA. Because it wasn't Legion. And I'm pretty sure it was already... In fact, I know it was already Blades and Challenge, so I think it was BFA was when they invented that. Oh, yes. Okay, yeah, I'm with you on that, Moog. The best feature for BFA. You know, that's a good pick. But that's actually a really solid pick. I agree with you completely. The new scaling system. Yeah, Chromie time and all that. Yeah, yeah. And nowadays, you can just level in Dragonflight. You could just level in Dragonflight. You could just do it. You could just level through Dragonflight, guys. Did you see that they did another adjustment to make Chromie time slightly better? I ran into this by accident because I was leveling my priest. So, previously, just real quick, and we'll talk about worst feature. Previously, the way it would work is you'd hit 67 and you'd be fine. That's why we had the 67 crew, if you remember, during the review run. You hit 68, you're still in time walking, but now you can no longer change your time walking. You can no longer enter a new time walking phase because they want you to start doing the new expansion, right? Which was War Within at the time. Then at 70, you could no longer enter. You could no if you left time walking, like if you went to Stormwind or if you went to Orgrimmar, you'd get shunted back into being in the modern time. So you'd be kicked out of that. So as long as you stuck there, you'd be fine. The moment you hit 71, there would be an alert that was like, and it would just automatically force you back. They got rid of the alert. It's a tiny change. But instead what happens is Chromie pops up and it's like, hey, we could really use you in War Within. And there becomes a quest to go turn into Chromie, which will then put you back into the modern timeline. But it will not force you out of your time. It won't force you out of the Chromie time. A minor change that makes experiencing old content a lot better. I've talked for literal years at this point about how WoW needs a go-do touch-up old content team. And what's really frustrating is they have one. And most of the stuff that team does isn't even documented. It's just stuff you kind of have to stumble into. Anyways. So, I promised you a worse feature. So we do have the cooking pot there. And I like the cooking pot. I liked the little events. I accept being wrong. I mean, Amir Drassil was better about it. The community events were a great idea. 100%. I actually, real story as I'm heading out here. The rep tokens, which took up inventory space. They still did that in War Within. It wasn't as bad, but they still did that. Real talk as I'm flying out here. There was a friend of ours, me and Pax had a friend who joined WoW during Dragonflight. And we were going to go do everything in order, because that was a fairly logical, normal thing, and blah, 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 blah. So we're going to go through and do all of Dragonflight in order, all of WoW in order, starting basically with Cataclysm. And then one night, while our friend wasn't on, me and Pax were actually doing a Mirdrasil. And we were doing the, I forget what the specific event was. It's the one where the giant tree is stomping around and you got to help him grow. You remember that one? Something Bloom, like Super Bloom or something like that. I forget the name. Maybe it was Super Bloom. Either way, we were in the middle of doing that, and Pax was like, we should bring them into this. I was like, what do you mean? Like, well, this is going away. Right? Like, the only way they will be able to experience this live, the only way they'll be able to experience an event, a community event, is if they happen to be here live. And I was just like, shoot, you're right. So we ended up kind of canceling events. We actually have yet to go back to Cataclysm as of this very moment. And just turbo leveling the friend so that they could join us in Dragonflight and start participating in some of the modern stuff while it was still new. Probably the right call. But I'm getting off topic, of course. I just wanted to share that little anecdote while we were flying around. And it's almost like I'm just kind of... I'm letting all the toxins of Shadowland just slowly drip out of me as I fly across the Honorin Plains here. Because there were still quite a few things I didn't like about Dragonflight. And there was one back-of-the-box feature. One major new gimmick that I didn't care for. And you can tell what it is because I'm heading right for it. I've already circled around it like 3 times now because I won't shut up. It's the fire camps. So, for those of you who've never done these, the way these work out is you get here. There's kind of like a pseudo-world questy thing. But this is... It's Silithus. It's Silithus. I'm not even joking. It's better than Silithus, obviously. But it's still kind of slow, and it's still very irritating. Especially doing it solo. You kind of... Like, you can do this solo. It's a little more irritating, a little more slow, a little more frustrating. The idea is you kill trash, which gets you items, which you use on things to get you bigger items, which you use on the bigger things to summon bigger dudes, and then you summon the biggest dude, and you do that 3 times, and you get the keys, and use the keys to get the loot, and that's the whole cycle. Like I said, it's the Silithus thing. It's the exact same format as what we did all the way back in Vanilla during the Gate of Encourage. It is more condensed, it's better constructed, it's far more rewarding. But it's still not exactly a format I was super fond of. And good lord, good luck doing this when nobody's here. I don't remember exactly when they really started, because bit by bit over time they made it so that tagging shared more. By Dragonflight's time, you're sharing with everybody here, whether they're Horde, Alliance, in your party, or out of your party, which is great, and a great feature that should exist. It's also true, Venters. But I mentioned that because imagine if tagging didn't share and you're trying to do this crap. Because that would have sucked anymore. Alright, so. Best gimmick. Best gimmick in Dragonflight. Obviously, it's the talents. I love the talents. They're great. The new system is phenomenal. Yeah, unfortunately, this really is a gimme. There is no question or debate as to what the best feature is of Dragonflight. It's not even close. It's not even a question. Absolutely, Mook. 100%. Talents are in the best place they've been in WoW history right now, in my opinion. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the system, the interface underneath the talents right now is phenomenal. They did a massive overhaul under the hood of how this talent system works, and it works so well. I have nothing but praise for it. So the talents are phenomenal. But it's the Dragonfly. Oh my god, of course it's the Dragonfly. Let's talk about this. Let's really zoom in a little bit here. First and foremost, it's faster. I know that's a weird thing to start with, but Dragonflying is something like, what is it, triple the speed of old Epic Flight. And if you don't understand this, let me demonstrate, because this is easy to demonstrate. I'm going to go from this hill. We're going to make this a short trip to this hill. I'm just going to go over here. Okay, that's about 3 seconds, right? Give me a second. It's a little under 10 seconds. And it's really easy to emphasize. All you have to do is pick a direction and point. And just do this to really emphasize the speed variance. Look at the difference there. Like some people, we talked about this the other day. Some people, you know, they get up here. And they start thinking, oh god, I'm barely moving. You think that's bad? Try it when you're doing the old style flying. Now, hang on. Not to just bash old flying, but honestly, the fact that they made it a toggle was a great move. The fact that dragon flying is opt-in is probably the single biggest thing that makes it an awesome feature. You don't have to dragonfly, like, at all, really. I think there's, like, 2 instances in the game where it's pretty much mandated. Not counting races, obviously. But yeah, sorry, so I was still talking... Like I said, let's zoom in. Let's really talk about why dragon flying is amazing. God, this is terrible. Hang on. I'm sorry, this is driving me insane. This is so bad. Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, God. Give me my speed. Give me my speed back. Where's the... Oh, God, where's the thing? Give me my speed. Ah! Help! Help! Ahem. Speed. So speed is a very big thing, and I wanted to start with that for obvious reasons. Whee! The second is that it's gameplay. As I just demonstrated, old flying, certainly, it's not like it was nothing, but it was swimming, right? What that meant, practically speaking, is about 99% of your time spent flying, you'd point a direction, and then you'd take your hands off the key. You do this, right? Now, you can do that in some circumstances with dragon flying, but for the most part, you're encouraged to play the video game. We actually have a term for this. It's called traversal. Traversal is the mechanics and gameplay of getting from point A to point B. So like a flight path or a waypoint system or a fast travel system is not traversal. But like the specifics of how your mount works or web swinging over in Spider-Man, or how the vehicles ride in Grand Theft Auto 5, or how the planes work in something like Just Cause, that's traversal, right? So this is traversal. It is good traversal gameplay. It rewards skill, and it doesn't mandate it for just basic transit. And of course, the next thing, and this is tied in, is this gameplay is rewarded in races, which are fun. The dragon riding races are just fun to do. And you could tell that a lot of thought and effort was put into the specifics of which races and where. You can even see the progression of those races, and we showed this off during the review, as you go across the zones. And that's true. You know what? Since I'm just flying around right now, why don't we go do some races just to show this off? So hang on. So it's faster, it's opt-in, it's gameplay. We've got the races which lead into it. Dragonflight doesn't technically get credit for these next two things. For example, Dragonflight does not get credit for the fact that Walker just subbed to me. Well, I was actually going to bring up the music, because the race music is actually really freaking awesome. We'll get to that in a second. I'm sorry, Walker. I really did not expect this to be a 3-day thing. Thank you for the sub, Walker. As always, give me a moment. I'll pull it up here. And this will go towards... Gravity Circuit, Chained Echoes, and something that Kaisen Zero picks. We'll just do the advanced course. By the way, the races themselves, I'm kind of drifting over a little bit, because there's a lot of really cool stuff in the races. Like, individual design decisions that make the races even better than they already sound. I don't know how much the transcoding is keeping up with this. Why would I answer that question to Quack? What possible reality would have me give away the mystery just because you asked? Like, that would be... That's not much of a mystery at that point, is it? Like, that would be funny. Super mystery game. And, like, the only requirement is someone just has to ask, what is it? And that's the only requirement. Crushed that. Jesus Christ. Anyways. Yes, cooking has decor. Just so you know. It actually has some really good decor, too. Anyway, so flying is super awesome, obviously. Super amazing and super fantastically awesome. It also... I already mentioned it's optional. I can't give it credit for this. But I do want to mention two other things. That this was patched in War Within. First of all, they made it so that all mounts are dragon flying. Which is, you know, why I've been flying around as a Cataclysm Dragon this whole time. Why my mech can zoom around like this, see? So that was cool. They also backloaded dragonflying to every zone that has flying. And let me be very clear. Not much has improved the entire game more than being able to dragonfly anywhere. This is going to apply to Eversong in about a month and a half here. Anyway, so that's why dragonflying is the best. I could probably zoom in even more. I think you get the overall idea. Did that actually give us anything, by the way? It didn't! Oh, how many races do I have to do to count? 5? Ugh. Doing 5 races? Screw that. So that's the best back-of-the-box feature. If I had to pick a second one, because dragonflying is such an easy gimme, I would actually say community events. Community events are pretty much copy-pasted out of Guild Wars 2. They took the concept of, hey, let's just get a bunch of players in one spot and give them motivation to help each other do something, and ran with it. And they've kind of never stopped, actually. That is a consistent thing that they've been using in both Dragonflight and in War Within. The first few were very test-beddy, like the aforementioned cooking pot. But by the time they got to Amir Jassel, they kind of nailed what that is. And they're fun, and they're rewarding, and they're awesome. So, what's the worst class in Dragonflight? What's the worst spec is really what this boils down to. Now that's a take, Mook. I'm not gonna lie. Oh, almost got it to trigger. Dragon Age 4. You got it, Kaisen through. Ah! Sun and Sky. So yeah, the answer is Rogue. Of course it's Rogue. It's always Rogue. Hey, that... Isn't that supposed to be over Silvermoon? It's always Rogue. It's always Rogue. So what's the runner-up? What's the runner-up? Ugh, excuse me. So actually, amusingly enough, I actually agree with Mook, kind of. The biggest problem, the biggest problem spec, the closest thing to badly designed, as in Rogue, in Dragonflight was Augment, which was the buff spec, or it was supposed to be the buff spec, and then it wasn't the buff spec, and then it was kind of just a DPS spec, but it was kind of given heals. It had the Discipline Priest problem, where they just could not make up their mind with what to do with it. And there was a lot of pushback in a lot of different directions from a lot of different peoples in different circles. And they kind of tried to do their best, but as a result, Augment had a very rough growth period there. I actually will admit I'm not a big fan of Augment personally, but my reasons for it are probably different than most people's, because my biggest complaint about Augment is that it's not a buff spec, which is what I wanted. I wanted to sit there and cast things and time things and layer things that buff my party members. And I can't really do that. I mean, I can, but like, it's what, 2 buffs that you're mainly balancing around? No, it's just a DPS spec with a couple of extra buttons. It's like Bard over in FF14. They didn't really commit to anything, so it's just kind of there. I also think, as of this moment, they've probably backed away completely from the very concept of a buff spec, which really sucks. I get why, but it still sucks. Yeah, unlike Bard in FF11. Because it continues to prove that the only one of the big 3 that actually understands that a buff spec can work is Guild Wars freaking 2. Moving on. So what's the best? Best spec? Well, obviously it's Demon Hunter. But... for real, what's the best spec in Dragonflight? I should get rid of my HUD. When I'm just flying around like that, I don't even notice the HUD, so I apologize for that. No, remember, spec. We're firmly at the point now This has been true for a while, when specs are very different from each other, so you have to pick the worst spec. Retribution. I mean... Red has been a very good spec many times in this game's history. Lava bath. I mean, you saw the joke about that, right, Bregwin? Man, I'm just killing it with my DPS this particular run. Isn't that great? Oh, man, my numbers are so good. But, like, every time, and I mean, like, every time I'm just nailing it on the DPS meter, there's this random evoker who's just doing junk numbers. Isn't that weird? So, amusingly enough, I do actually think it's one of the evoker specs. It is Devastation. Preservation, whatever the heal spec, isn't exactly bad. In fact, it's a good heal spec. And Augment has its own issues, but Devastation was just really good in Dragonflight. It really so first of all, they had that whole new yeah, exactly, remember. They had that whole new mechanic of the hold charge thing, which they've continued to develop and bake out into some other classes as well. And a lot of how that spec works is fully on the player's hands. What I mean by that is Devastation is still fun and interesting and enjoyable. So low floor, but also you can really squeeze performance out of it. High ceiling. And that's pretty much the goal with any class in virtually any game. Low floor, high ceiling. And I think Devastation really nailed that. It also looks amazing and sounds amazing. There's a reason it was crushing on the viscerality when we were reviewing it. Anyways. So, yeah, the Hunter formula. Exactly. No, a high floor would mean it's very hard to pick up. Very hard to get used to it. So the floor is the difficulty in onboarding, and the ceiling is the difficulty in being able to push it to its limit. A low ceiling, there actually are several specs in the game that have a fairly low ceiling, because there's only so much you can do with it, right? Yeah, sorry, look, terminology. Look, words are hard. What's the worst zone? What's the worst leveling zone in Dragonflight? Mr. Red, what's the worst leveling zone in Dragonflight? As usual, I'm just cheating and using my own review for this, as opposed to a more vibe check kind of a thing. Wow, they put the Barons in Dragonflight? Jesus. That explains everything. I'll give you a hint. I'm flying around it right now. And I want to make this fundamentally clear. This zone scored a total across both gameplay and story of plus 26. For a bit of perspective, that is almost as many positives as Ardenweald got back in Shadowlands. I made that specific point there. I made a note of it in my document, because I wanted to emphasize how good the worst has gotten as of Dragonflight. As usual, I wasn't counting some of the extra zones, like Forbidden Reach or Amirdrasil. Although Amirdrasil kind of counts, I don't know. Forbidden Reach has its own issues. There's just not a lot to do there other than treadmilling, because it's a treadmill zone. I will admit, I think Forbidden Reach is a legitimately not good treadmill zone, especially compared to some we've already had, but whatever. Anyways. Okay, what's the best zone? Once again, I'm just cheating with this and using my own review. I love the Veldraken music. It's also not really irritating to hear the first few notes of it, like, say, Dazar'alor. Yeah, they're all good picks. That's the funny part. Even the zone I was just in is still a good pick. It is not a bad pick. Overall, so I decided to divide this up a little bit, okay? Overall, it's this zone. So, the Emerald Dream is actually a treadmill zone, but it's one of the... It might actually... I'm going to go so far as to say I think it's actually the best treadmill zone I've ever seen. There's still a lot of story and content and events that are fun. They had some of the best dragon riding races in the game out here. The visuals are the second best visuals in the entire game. It's exactly what it sounds like, Ventures. It's a zone designed for you to just kind of spin your wheels on to gain rep or cosmetics or gear or whatever. It's a treadmill zone. You're not supposed to go anywhere. You're just supposed to stand on the treadmill. In an MMO space, treadmill zones are common because the devs need you to keep playing while they work on the next content. Content zones, leveling zones we usually call those, tend to be more progression. You're going from point A to point B, metaphorically speaking. But a treadmill zone, you're just sitting there going... So like I said, this is technically a treadmill zone, but God, it's a good one. And yeah, like that skybox. We really are into the good skybox right now. And the tree. And my favorite thing about this tree... Oh, God, it's Legion Fall. My favorite thing about this tree is that it's actually there, which I know sounds like a duh. But usually, even in this game, something like this would just be a skybox. I mean, hell, if you remember, you couldn't go up to the trees in Ardenweald. They were physically rendered, but they were in a place... There was a ceiling. You could not reach them. You can fly around a Mirdrasil. And then, of course, there's the narrative access and the conclusion and actually doing some great stuff with Ardenweald and the Night Elves and finally having finally turning Charonda into a good character and just... Everything about this zone was phenomenal. But it is admittedly a little cheaty because it's a treadmill zone, not a leveling zone. So what's the best leveling zone? Well, I'll go ahead and tell you because, again, I've already got the numbers here. So this place got a lot of positive, plus 64 positive for the Emerald Dream. The Waking Shores got 54. Finally beating the Jade Forest. Which I was very impressed with. It's funny because they're both initial zones to their first look of their given expansions. But the Waking Shores was just kind of legit top to bottom. Yeah, it's the first zone. It's the one where we see... the nature of exploration. We get the first introduction to the threat. There's a whole lot of great side quests, mostly about just discovery, rediscovery, identity. Great side characters. Everything to do with Rathion and the beginning of his character arc, which would then conclude in Zarlik. The introduction of several new characters. It was just, it was phenomenal. This mount, so I don't know how you get it now. The way I got it was from Delves. Delve Season 2, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, no, exactly. You want to... I've said this so many times. Your intro and your outro need to bang. They need to be amazing. Because you want to keep people. You want people to keep playing. Oh, it's February now. Okay, so now it looks like you can buy it for 15,000 undercoins. You can get a recolor... the recolor's fine. It doesn't have the lightning. You'll notice I'm still flying this one instead of the recolor. Because this lightning is just so cool. Anyways. So yeah, Waking Shores. I should also mention the Azure Span was plus 52. Which, if you remember, the Waking Shores was plus 54. That's how close the quality was on a lot of the leveling zones in Dragonflight. Oh, God, little Billy. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. I don't care what anybody says. The love rocket is not real. So, what's the worst dungeon in Dragonflight? Doesn't exist, Evo. Doesn't exist. You are lying to me. I mean, whatever your answer is, Spartan. It's up to you. You can give whatever answer you want to. It is a mount, yes. Really, Valerian? Ignore this. We'll get here in a second. So I'm not going to fly all the way out there. But for me, the moment I realized this, it just kind of solidified for me. To be clear, it is still a good dungeon. They're all good dungeons. But for me, I would say the worst dungeon, pound for pound, is Uldaman. Exactly. Uldaman is not bad. It's way the ass over there. It was part of the launch event. It was accessible as the pre-launch. And it's an overhaul, which means it's still using the old visuals and the old terrain, which has its old problems. Oh god, you're still following me around. There we go. And it's got some great bosses and blah blah blah. It's still a good dungeon. It's just least good, right? Best dungeon. Best dungeon in Dragonflight. And could you keep it down? They're trying to get some sleep. Did you see that they have a Murloc plushie as they're sleeping? Hello, Iggy. Unfortunately, best dungeon in Dragonflight is kind of a gimme. Oh my god, look at this. Think about how much time this took to put together. Evo, I expect to see this exact setup with these doodads in your house by tomorrow. And I want pictures of Spider-Man. No, I mean, yeah, no, all of those are stuff you can do somewhere. Although I'm not sure if the clockwork ships are. Hang on. Oh my god, we're level 3! Valerian's awesome. And so is everyone else who isn't me, because I've been contributing. Oh gosh. What would a clockwork... Oh, hang on. Oh no, that's like outside-y stuff. What would it be called? Maybe just let's try ship. Have a toy. No. I don't know what it'd be called. Ah, well. Oh god, yeah, we need our duck plushie. You know why. Hey, I'm gonna go paint really quick here. Alright, let's just get a little touch. Just a little touch here. There we go, there we go. There we go. Perfect. Jesus Christ, Uthor. Okay. So the best dungeon's the Dawn of the Infinite. Of course it is. In addition to the fact that it's a mega dungeon or ultra dungeon, whatever the hell they call those, the fact is it's an extremely well-designed dungeon, and I have had the great fortune of doing it when it was hard, Mythic, when it was hard. But even ignoring that, it is just kind of a banger of a dungeon. And it even is thematically appropriate, which, if you'll notice, is a lot of my best dungeon picks throughout the expansions have been dungeons that have theme to them, in addition to just being good. So, the theme there is time, of course, duh. But what I mean by that is you do the dungeon and then everything goes badly. So, like, you rewind and the halfway point of the dungeon is going back and redoing the dungeon. It is also MSQ. That's true. It is very much MSQ and critically important to the events of Midnight and War Within, and probably the Last Titan. We're not sure about that last one, but it would not surprise me. And I just realized I'm flying around like a doofus. There's something much more important I need to be doing here. Got to flex a little bit. You got to flex, right? You got to flex. There we go. There we go. Get the flex on. He's so happy. He's such a good boy. He's such a good boy. Look at him. Look at him. He's a good boy. Who's a good boy? So, I hated doing this, by the way. I'm really glad that the newer ones are not as badly designed as this. Getting this was arduous and terrible, and I actually still haven't gotten the other ones because of it. Having said that, can I flex on one more thing? So yeah, I'm kind of... This looks like I'm close on BFA. I'm not. I've given up on BFA. This, I'm nowhere on Shadowlands, and I gave up on that completely. All I'm missing from War Within is two things. This requires... This has to be one world quest, so that's just check every week. And this... Or sorry, this is a daily quest, and this is a world quest. So weekly quest, world quest. So I have to just check those, so that's pretty much guaranteed as long as they just show up. And the other one that I'm missing is I clicked the wrong thing. Very hard to do that one. Is the Siren Isle. And specifically what I'm missing on the Siren Isle is do the weekly quest and something that's totally here. What is this? Huh. I might have to do that. Sorry. Oh god, I lost it now. Ah! And getting the rares. You notice I'm only missing 3 rares. Yeah, so that's it. I'm missing 3 rares in the Siren Isle, doing the weeklies in Siren Isle, doing a weekly in Hallowfall, and doing a world quest in Hallowfall. That's it. That's all I'm missing. So, yeah, we're getting that mount. Me and Pax are synced on this, obviously. Achievements back button. So it's funny you say that. What I usually do is I use the tracker over here. And this is how I go back up. But so like, boop. And then I just, this. Then I go back over here, boop, like that. That's how I've been working my way around that problem. Anyways, sorry, we were talking about Dragonflight. Did you know Dragonflight exists? Did you know that the Dawn of the Infinite is such a good dungeon? I wanted to mention a second dungeon because it is such a good dungeon. I actually really like the Nakud Offensive, which is the Honor in Plains dungeon, if you don't remember it. And I don't know what else to add to that, actually. It's just a really fun dungeon. It was the first dungeon to allow you to fly in the dungeon, not the last. The bosses are fun and interesting. The trash is cool. You can do it in whatever order except for the last boss. It's just, it's good. It's a very good, solid dungeon. How about worst raid? So, okay, let's get this out of the way. There's not a lot of raids in this one. This is kind of a recurring trend. So there's only the 3. And this will be a thing in War Within as well. There's only the 3. So it's Vault. Unfortunately, the question mark for this for both War Within and for Dragonflight is just obvious. Because it's Vault. Vault isn't a bad raid. It's just not as good as the other 2. That's all there is to it. Vault of the Incarnates is fine. Points to the Razageth fight. That's a pretty good fight. I'll give you that one. And the spider fight, which, you know... Alright, well, what's the best raid? Now, I was actually legitimately torn on this one. Because both Avarice and Amir Drasil are kind of bangers. They're bangers on both axes, too. They both have great story, and they both have great gameplay. They're also both MSQ. You'll notice, by the way, all 3 raids in Dragonflight are MSQ. I'm glad they added that story. Have they finally added that stupid story mode thing? Because at some point we need to go back and review that. Whenever they finally add that in. I know they're doing it. Has it gone in yet? Anyways. Now, I'm going to admit, super biased here. I am super biased here. But I'm going to go ahead and pick a Mirdrasil for mine. Not just because of the zone, not just because of the story, not just because it has one of my favorite boss fights in WoW history in it. Not just because of the fact that it's great visually, it has amazing music, and it does great callbacks to previous dungeons and raids, and has great theming. Not just the fact that we finally kill, what's his I can't think of his name. Whoa. There we go. A little bit of lag, sorry. Smolderon, who we put on the throne, by the way. We did that. I love this. We gave him his stupid sword. Ember Scar. He has an ability called Ember Scar's Mark. We gave him that stupid sword. You're welcome. Oh, there is a shaman thing. What does he say? What does he say? Because I've never done it as a shaman. I need to make that happen now. Just for funsies. We actually killed him last night so I could get my Hearthstone. Because I wanted my hearth. Want my hearth. Anyways. So yeah. I would say a Mirdrasil is the best. But I have a very dumb personal reason for putting Mirdrasil best. It's not just a super freaking amazingly awesome raid. But I got to experience it in something other than LFR. Which is kind of rare for me. I just, at this point in my life, especially now that I am streaming full-time, I just don't have the time to dedicate to raiding full-time. Right? Like, I don't have that. I don't have the time commitment anymore. And so I tend to kind of miss out on that kind of stuff, even though I do actually enjoy that kind of thing. So, being able to actually experience a Mirdrasil legit was just kind of satisfying and awesome and fun. And also, it's a freaking amazing raid. Moving on. Okay. Worst raid boss. I chewed on this one for a while. As usual, what this really means is least good. Because, you know, that's just where we're at. The Zakali Assault, huh? Is that the one I think it is? Yep. The flying one in Mirdrasil. That's an interesting pick. That's Tindril. I even remember his name. It's Tindril Swiftseeker or something like that. But yeah, it's the druid. Oh, I don't see anybody here. Yeah, Tindril for worst. You notice I didn't say anything about that at all. I just shut up, like, okay. Cool. I'm not here to judge you or tell you you're extremely wrong. Not my place. I'm changing my mind on the fly. I was actually going to say Aranog. So, Aranog is the very first fight. It's this dude. The very first fight in Vault. He's actually a character we meet in the story quests. And he's fine. There's nothing wrong with him. Again, least good, right? That's where we're at. I'm flying. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Everything's fine. But I'm going to change my mind. I think Huthor is actually correct. By virtue of the fact that I forgot that this fight even existed. This really is a fine fight, but it's still just, it's an ad fight of just fighting off waves of ads. And I also have to admit, from a personal perspective, I just find absolutely nothing interesting about these guys. I don't remember their names. The Fire Giants. We talked about this during the run. The Fire Giants are so disinteresting to me that I just don't care about them at all. There's no real culture to speak of. There's no narrative there. There's no development. They're not people. They're not a species. Not really. They are mooks. They are zombies or stormtroopers or darkspawn. The only reason they're a thing is because they have the Jarden. How was it? The Jarden. The only reason the Jarden are a thing is because they happen to be dragon hunters, and this is an expansion about the dragons. That's it. That's it. Not impressed. Best raid boss. Okay, hang on. Let me throw you a twofer. What's the second best raid boss? Because we all know what the best raid boss. Like almost everybody goes, why can't I fly all of a sudden? Oh god. Oh god. Can you still hear me? Okay, there we go. We're here. We exist. That was a hell of a lag spike. Did you see that? Jesus. What is that? Oh. Ah! Grats, whoever that is. Who is doing that? Who are you? Identify yourself. It's Mook! Grats, Mook. So, yeah. The reason I say that is Tindril is the best. Just straight up. Tindril... So, we've talked about this many times. Tindril is a themed fight. He is a fire druid. And everything that implies. He fights you in his balance form. He fights you in his flight form. Then he fights you in his tree form. And he is awesome. It's hard to even properly explain because, like, you're like, who is this guy? I have no idea. You don't know. He doesn't know. He has no narrative relevance. It's actually probably the only thing that sucks about the fight. But from a purely mechanical perspective, this is one of the best fights in the entire game. This is still a great fight. And awesome and fun and amazing. You fly during it, and there's this really cool mechanic to really emphasize just how much thought and quality assurance testing, rehire your QA testers, Microsoft, went into this fight. There's a great mechanic, right? So just pretend for a moment that as I'm flying around, because you fly during the fight, pretend that there's those little orbs of stamina, right? So you are riding with all your friends, and you're zooming through here, and you rush ahead, and you manage to get one of the things. Boosh! You get the stamina for you, which gives you more things to boosh forward, and you get another stamina thing to get you boosh forward. What's the problem with this immediately? Anybody who's reviewed, anybody who's designed, could immediately tell you there's a huge gaping flaw in that design. And that is, the first person to get each stamina is cool. What about everyone else? So they did it so that the first person to hit it gets the stamina boost, which allows them to go faster. And then the stamina boost turns into a wind boost. So that everyone behind actually has a catch-up mechanic. So the people in the front of the pack have something to help them keep going, and the people at the back of the pack have something to help them catch up. That is one mechanic, one tiny snippet of how well designed the Tindril fight is. Now, picking a number 2 slot, that's tricky. Huthor mentioned it's Fyrak. I'm going to go against the grain here and say that I was never super impressed with this fight. Don't mistake me, it is like a great fight. It's so hard. We're so far past normal review standards here. Here's a fight that would blow away most fights in other games. It's not that great. I do love the mechanic of healing the spirits as they are going into the soul to help prevent the thing from dying. Because it's actually, the whole fight is an escort fight. You are protecting Amir Drasil's core from Fyrak himself, while you're simultaneously trying to kill Fyrak. So the healers are kind of busy, and the DPS is kind of busy, and the tank's got to deal with everything, and there's a lot going on, and it's a good fight. A lot of movement, too. A lot of moving parts. But if I had to pick a number 2 fight, honestly, my knee-jerk thought is Sarkarath. 2 reasons. First of all, narratively, Sarkarath was way more interesting than Fyrak. Sarkarath is obviously a fantastic... His whole story. It's the clone trooper. We talked about it. It's the clone trooper problem from Star Wars, right? He was a good soldier who wanted to be a good soldier, who wanted to blindly follow orders, who couldn't because he was a sentient sapient being who was constantly doubting and questioning himself. Which is why he eventually gives in to the void. Doubt. It's a great thing narratively, but also it happens to be a phenomenally amazing fight. some line of sight stuff, and you have to deal with the formation. You have to deal with the ebb and mic problems, and whatever you do, don't detonate. And it's a great fight. Moving on. Ahem. Okay. Best individual dungeon boss, high off the deep end, in Dragonflight. I've often found that picking best dungeon bosses gets difficult because a lot of people tend to remember the dungeon more than the boss, if that makes any sense. Yeah, so I'm going to give this away. It's one of the Dawn of the Infinite fights, because all of these fights are just kind of amazing. I also want to give special mention to the final fight in here, Chronolord Deus. Who, yeah, he summons things, and he open rifts, and you gotta go deal with those, and also he does this AoE meteor strike thing where you gotta stand on it. Your allies help with the fight. He's got a breath attack. It's a very, 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 very cool fight. But actually, I agree with Iridikron being the top here. What's really interesting about this fight to me is that, for all intents and purposes, canonically, we do kill Iridikron here. We defeat him. That's it. We beat him. Boom! Done. Which makes sense. He is, after all, merely a primal aspect, and sorry, a primal incarnate. And I'm sorry, we've dealt with bigger threats than that. Razagath. So yeah, him being a dungeon boss actually made perfect sense. And we kill him. But then things go badly because we were distracted by him. That's the point at which we have to go redo the dungeon. Time being the theme of the dungeon. Still, a very, very fun, interesting, engaging fight. He also tries to kill Chromie in the fight, which, if you're not careful, that's a whole thing. Great fight. Okay. What for you is the best individual song in Dragonflight? You actually know my answer, because I've already played it. Yeah, it's the same motif as the main theme. It's so joyous. It's so breath of fresh air, which is funny because that is what Dragonflight was. Yeah, it's so positive. That's a great word, Adam Seed. It's such a positive song. Whenever I do dragon races, unless I really have something else to work on, I almost always turn on the sound because I want to hear this music as I'm doing it. You can do it, Mook. You can do it. Where are you? What are you doing? What's the Mook doing? Oh, well, good luck. I love this song. There's some really good music, but oh my god. Yeah, this is kind of a gimme. Alright. Which zone for you has the worst visual design? Anybody want to jump on that? Waking Shore? Azure Span? Theldrassus. I was actually tempted by Theldrassus. You may or may not know my answer, because I may or may not be flying around it right now. But for me, it's the Forbidden Reach. And that really helps emphasize the point. This... I'm sorry, I gotta emphasize this for a moment. This, to me, is the worst looking zone of the game. Sorry, in Dragonfly. I keep saying game. I mean expansion. That's me. That's me screwing up. It is a cheat, as most treadmill zones tend to be. But then, yeah, there's another treadmill zone which is the best looking. Speaking of which, what's the best looking? You know what the best looking zone is. Don't front. Don't give me that. You know what the best zone is. You know what the best looking zone is. It's not even close. It's, in my opinion. It is so shockingly well designed that regardless of my own personal preference, the Emerald Dream does so much right. As of this moment, I actually double-checked for this, the Emerald Dream has the most visual positives of any zone in the game that isn't named Undermine. And Undermine is stupid. Undermine is the StarCraft 2. Undermine is the Andor of zones. So that's just doesn't even count, right? The Emerald Dream is crazy. But as usual, there's not really a bad choice. Even if you told me Forbidden Reach, I would still be like, yeah, I could buy that. The visual design of these zones is so good that if you told me any given zone was your favorite, I would believe you. All right. Best atmosphere. Each of these zones does have a pretty distinct atmosphere to them. The Azure Span, aka Wrath 2.0, and I don't mean that as a negative thing, certainly has a hell of a vibe to it. You can probably guess my answer because I'm flying around it right now. Not really this area so much. I mean, it still counts. It still gets credit for this area. But, like, there were two things about this zone's atmosphere that really pushed it above the rest for me. First of all, everything about this just looks like what I picture when I hear the word wilds. Waterfalls, brush and foliage everywhere. Big, open, blue waters and rivers, rough, craggy terrain, shaped just by time, you know? Like, you can, if you look around, they did so much work with the geography of this zone. If you look around, you could see where the river used to be. It's right about at the level I'm at here, right? And you can kind of see where the water has slowly carved its way through the place. And as usual, it's just got that overall tone and vibe of exploration, that breath that I just mentioned, the breath of fresh air. It's gorgeous, and I love the vibe of it. But which zone has the best overall music? Just across the whole zone, just in general. Obviously, it's the Ruby Dragon Shrine, of course. Huthor really wants the Honoring Plains to win something. Poor Huthor. You bet on the wrong horse, Huthor. I'm actually kidding. Because I actually agree. The overall music of the Honoring Plains, the big open Mulgori style fields, music, this is about music, to the kind of more tribal drumbeat of the centaur, to the emerald dragon area, the horns. So I think I'm moving too fast because the songs keep transitioning. I apologize. Yeah, good horns, not plague horns, exactly. You gotta have good horns. Yeah, of all of the zones in Dragonflight, I would probably be most tempted to settle in the Honoring Plains. Anyways. Okay. Characters. Who is the best side character in Dragonflight? And I think I could formally say there's no wrong answers here. Except for Huthor, obviously. There are so many great side characters. There's the Centaur Lady that we help out with the thing. The Bane, technically, as part of that arc. We've got... oh, God, I can't remember his name. The one who helps out with Wrathion stuff in the Waking Shores. Remember that Ruby Draconid lady who dies as part of the early quest arc? Chromie probably qualifies as major at this point. There's also Varaxian. I want to give bonus points to Veritastraz. I didn't actually decide to pick Veritastraz, but I could see why some people would just say Veritastraz is their favorite side character in this game. Because, first of all, everyone remembers his first scene. But what not everyone remembers is that he actually pokes his head in several times throughout the course of the expansion, and continues to kind of develop and progress as we go through it. Like, he's the dwarf with the story. If you're unfamiliar with it. He is everything he does is very deep and personal stuff, very low tier, very down to earth, and he and Varaxian kind of work together, and it's this very, very slow, gradual attempt to pull him out of the doldrums that he's in. But that's not actually who I ended up picking. It almost felt like a cheat to pick him, to be quite honest with you. Anyone else want to jump in here? Because there's several other really good side characters. How many of you remember the couple? Sorry, I should clarify, because there's like 5 couples who all go out here to explore. But the one that jumps out of my mind the most is the one in the Azure Span, where I want to say it's like a night elf and a blood elf, I think. Or it might have been night elf and a human. I don't know. Blood elves and humans all look alike to me. And one of them is like risky and boisterous and dangerous. The other one super isn't. And the other one almost dies, and we end up saving her life. It's a whole thing. Oh yeah, speaking of Bran, who is a side character in Dragonflight. How about Hemmet Nessingwary? You remember him? He has given up hunting and is actually all about animal preservation now. And he has several cool moments. He's just riding around the Azure Span, doing his thing. Oh, God, there's so many others. There's the traitor, Draconid. I actually kind of mentioned him earlier. He becomes a boss in the raid. Oh, God, there's so many. How about the one dragon spawn who ends up joining our side as part of the rebellion? Oh yeah, the Tuscar Painter was like right over here, I want to say, at this island. I actually pulled out his painting earlier. This guy, yeah, there he is. Hudson, there he is. And Ravros, while we're on the subject. It's worth noting, a lot of these side characters, so a lot of the guys I'm mentioning, I decided not to give the credit to, because a lot of them are duos, and I get it, and that's awesome. Character dynamic is character too, but I didn't want to give it to a duo. I wanted to give it to one character for just kind of being consistently awesome. So I ended up going with her. The Askaran chieftain lady here, Brenna, is just kind of awesome. She obviously has some great connections with several other people, including Calicos. But for the most part, she's just chill without being a pushover, which is harder to write than it sounds. Yeah, no, she is probably the most singularly responsible for why the Blue Dragonflight is able to recover. That and, you know, us. But I'm serious. We find her. Yeah, Aethys, let me introduce you to Tuskarr and Brenna. I hope they hit it off. I hope Aethys enjoyed Brenna's company, because holy crap. No, she's awesome. She's an awesome character with awesome scenes, plural. And she is a consistently cool character for several quest arcs as we're going throughout the Azure Span. Okay, best major character. We're a little spoiled for choice now, because there's a lot of major characters in Dragonflight. Oh, I actually don't remember her name. But yeah, the ice. Virnoth, that's her name. Thank you. I was just stalling on that. Wrathion, yeah. He had a very, very good character arc. Although I would argue Wrathion doesn't qualify as major character. I know we're getting kind of into the weeds on that, because we have a lot of major characters, but only a few who really push forward to main. Dragonflight, in many ways, was an ensemble expansion. In a good way, actually. I think it's one of the things it did well. So we had a lot of major characters with a lot of major story and development for them, but only a few main characters. But for me, my personal favorite major character may or may not even be here, depending on where we're at. Yep, no, there he is. It's Caligos. So, Azure goes... Oh, no, that actually makes sense. Honestly, you could make an argument for several of these characters, but Caligos is just... They took the doofus from BC. He's been with us since BC. How many of you remember that? And like, he kind of bumbled a little bit every time he showed up, especially in the frickin' book. But in Dragonflight, I would say for the first time, I really liked Caligos as a character. Yeah, it could be argued. Yeah, Anvina, my love. No, they took Caligos and turned him into a frickin' character. And I don't know what else to add to that. The only reason I'm hesitant, like, again, this is getting a little gradient because he kind of arguably qualifies as a main character, because the entire Blue arc centers around him, and he's got presence in the Azure arc as well. Emberthal is another excellent pick, and for basically the same reason. So Emberthal is our viewpoint character. As we've talked about, viewpoint characters, insight characters are very important. WoW usually does this very well, pretty consistently. Am I mounted right now? No, I'm not. Okay. No. Dismount. Emberthal is our viewpoint character for the Drakthir. And her story arc is interesting, because she's definitely not a main character, even though she's very much protagonist territory. We mostly deal with her in the patch content as we're going through Zerla Caverns and dealing with the Forbidden Reach. So she might technically be a better choice than, say, Caligos. Which leaves me with main character. Believe it or not, I'm not going to pick Caligos, but I'm tempted. Wait, hang on, really quick. Hang on, I want to be able to see myself. Where am I? You do exist for a second. Boop. Hey, Emagosha, who's your good girl? Who's your good girl, Emagosha? How you doing? I hope you're doing good. Hi, Steligosa. Razageth! Hang on, I need someone to horribly murder Kira White Noise, please. Thank you. You know what? Let's do this, actually. Oh yeah, someone asked if I ever got that Hearthstone. Well, I'm not going to answer you, but, got it yesterday, actually. Alexstrasza is interesting. Because you're right, she is clearly main character territory, and she's present for a huge portion of the story. But she doesn't move much. It's the one from Amir Drasil, Creamy. Like, Alexstrasza, I would say... See, remember how I differentiate character into characterization and character growth? Alexstrasza is a good example of that. She actually has pretty good character. She has no real character growth. By contrast, most of the other aspects go through a lot of character growth throughout the course of Dragonflight. That's fine. That makes sense. You want to have at least one person who's the rock behind that. The Celestia, if you will. But for me, I think the best character is main character is Rathian. Now, I admit I've been off and on about him ever since Kata, actually. Because I did the rogue quests. I have the daggers. He has dipped in and out of being a good character for me. Obviously, I did like his usage in Pandaria. He vanished for 2 expansions. They did good stuff with him in BFA, but he really did come out in like the last minute. And then he was absent completely for Shadowlands. Dragonflight took all of that and said, okay, let's turn you into a frickin' character. So he walks in and he is just as egotistical and just as self-centered as he always has been. And he starts running into walls. And amusingly, the very first wall he runs into is Sibelian, his brother over there. Bonk! And the two of them butt heads for most of their character interaction with each other. Not in like a truly evil, I want to kill you way, so much as a rivalry kind of way, which makes sense. Then we have Zarlek Caverns. And holy crap, did Zarlek do some just huge strides with both of these characters. But again, especially this one. Rathian finally was able to eat some humble pie and understand and acknowledge things that he doesn't like admitting, and allowed himself to do something he hasn't allowed himself to do around basically anyone else, which is being vulnerable. He has never allowed himself to have that vulnerability, and he even flat out admits the reason why. It's because he was afraid of becoming like his father. So, yeah, Rathian faces the void, something that'll be a major theme of the next expansion, and says, nah, I'm good. And there's a reason why Abyssian is the aspect over there, and not Rathian. Anyways, not like Abyssian is bad. I mean, pretty much everyone in this room qualifies as a great main character. Aspect of Storms, I like the name there. Okay. Best new species. Visually, purely visually. Purely in terms of visual design. Any thoughts? I mean, Drakthir is kind of an easy choice. But I'm gonna be honest, it's not my pick. What's my favorite expansion in WoW? War Within. 100% and without hesitation. War Within is so many levels of bonkers good that it absolutely destroys everything that came before it, including Dragonflight. Most important WoW expansion. That's a tough one. Shadowlands. Shadowlands was a turning point for WoW. In every way. Behind the scenes, narratively, gameplay-wise, design philosophy-wise. It was a total overhaul of the game, and it sucked and it was awful, and that's kind of why. But anyways, best visual design for a new species. Come on. Come on. There's actually a lot of great picks here. But the difference is so cute. And they've got that. Those wonderful little Minnesota accents, don't you know? By the way, Minnesota, you're awesome. Stay strong. Hopefully Oregon will fare as well as you did. No, I know. It was such a great decision. You have to understand. You have to understand that when creators are sitting down and designing a species, there are decisions they have to make. I don't, actually, Lineruth. It'd be nice, but I don't think it's going to. Yeah, hang on. Let me turn the sound on here.
See anything that tickles your fancy? Or your nose? Deal's so sweet you can smell 'em a mile away. You want it? You bet we've got it. The Tith Main's tidings bless you, friend. Lost your way?
Yeah, I'm trying to find...
Oh, ha! Didn't see you there, buddy.
Oh god, I'm all turned around. Where am I? This way, I think? I mean, that does tend to be the pattern, Little Billy.
Hello, Uplander.
Hey there! Well, come closer so I can get a whiff of you. Well, hello there, traveler. Oh, lost your way? The Kith welcomes you. Oh, didn't see you there, buddy. Oh, the Kith Main's tidings bless you, friend. Ah, could smell you a mile away. Oh, I smell a rat. Well, hello there, traveler.
Well, aren't you just the most aromatic thing? You smell full of adventure. Well, there is a familiar scent. Well, aren't you just the most aromatic thing? Well, there is a familiar scent. Niffin perceives sound and smell as the same sensation. We call it smound. You smell full of adventure.
Sorry, I didn't mean to smound you all like that. Anyway, so Niffin visuals, yes. Alright. Best new individual character design. Oh god, was I spoiled for choice here. I was so spoiled for choice here. I locked up a little bit. I was just like, oh god, I don't know. Like, do I go with Morchi? Yeah, do we go with Alex Strassa, who's just, oh my god. All the primals. All the new models for all of the aspects, which are just freaking amazing. Here's tiny hands. Gotta have tiny hands. Finally got an update to the old human form of Maltharion. Ysera? Oh god. Okay, hang on. Also, we gotta have... And also... hang on. How... okay, let's do it this way. What is that? Oh, sure, I might as well turn that in while I'm here.
Hey there! Well, come closer so I can get a whiff of you.
Fyrak also does look amazing. If you forced me to pick a favorite looking of the incarnates, I would actually say a Ridicron. The fact that he's a bunch of chunks of rock that aren't actually connected to each other just kind of appeals to me for some reason. Burning my stamina here for you. Alright, I'm ready, Huthor. I'm ready. It doesn't exist. No pluses to gameplay. Is actually what I'm expecting you to say. Ah, that is what I was expecting you to say. God, that sucks. So there's her dragon form. Which is not what you asked about. It's a shame I can't be like, hey, could you turn to your elf form for a second? My friend wants to see you. What? My friend wants to see you as an elf really quick, please. but I'm a dragon. I know you're a dragon. Yeah, there's Veranoth's design, by the way. Right there. Okay, there's one place she might be. Maybe. Probably not. But I'm going to check, because it's a relatively quick thing to check. She'd be over here. There she is. Just for you, Evo. What? Not her. Alright, you're fired. Get out of here. Get out of here. I also am one of those strange people who really likes Alex Strauss's new model. I know I've gotten some hackles from it. I don't even care. Oh, speaking of which, there's Viranoth's visage form. Subject. Screw the Titans. But they'd be pretty messed up. So, I don't know if I can find Ysara anywhere. Especially in her aspect, or sorry, her visage form. I don't know where she'd be. Whatever. I'm gonna go with a weird pick, though. It's this thing. Everything about this design is kind of amazing. So we've got the lunar moon up top with strands of silk going in between the arcs. And it's glowing with arcane energy, which is what, you know, what the moon is supposed to represent, arcane energy. Leaf shoulders, bark chest piece, leaf skirt, which kind of starts devolving into like this moon glow kind of thing, which itself slowly descends down into roots, which themselves are surrounded by flowers. And everything about like just the kind of pseudo-skeletal bark look of the clawed hands. This is for basically just a random side boss with no real lore relevance. This is a fantastic model, and I had to give it its own special mention and praise for being there and being awesome. Anyways. Okay. Probably Trahexia. We'll see in about a couple of years. Alright, what's the worst story arc in Dragonflight? Probably is Lunareth. There's actually several. For as much as I talk up Dragonflight, it was still a pretty rough expansion. And it still had a lot of flaws to it. Okay, go ahead and link, Eva. I guess. Please link. Link. Link! Yeah, no, that's Ysara. And yeah, the lunar look inside her cloak, or skirt, or whatever. The ruffled thing. It's funny they gave her such an up-to-date model, considering they've basically removed her from the narrative. I mean, I get the chat spam, if that's what you're talking about, Spartan. You can see it on my screen. It's right there. Sure. Yeah, I will show it on screen. Hang on. This is definitely something I have the power to do, and am totally in a position to do. Give me a second, oh my god! See you around, Lord Harriman. Enjoy the lunch. You are not annoying. You know who's annoying? Thor. No reason, just, you know. Hang on, let me just show the best mushroom guy ever here. Whoops. Okay, this actually isn't it. I just want to show this off super quick. This is an actual housing thing someone did in WoW. Like, if you look at it, you can see the pieces, right? There's wagons for legs. There's the gnomish gun for an arm over there. Over there is just some platforms and a bell for the axe on the other side. The actual house is at the very top. I can identify almost every piece I'm looking at. But Jesus Christ, how long do you think this took to make? But anyways. What Eva wanted me to show you was this. Ah, her face! Ah, her face! Oh god, this is a huge image. Hang on a second. Huge image. Jeez Louise. There we go. There's Ysera. Or Ysara. They themselves changed their minds on how to pronounce it. Don't look at me. I'm only working with what I got. So, for me, unfortunately, I'm actually sad because Huthor actually guessed it. The worst story arc for me was the Rebellion, which was a very intermittent story, and it was also very truncated. Please keep gushing about the leaves. And the colors. The blue. It was just... I don't know. I don't even know how to properly put it into words. The whole Rebellion arc was very half-baked, and that was its biggest problem. The fact that they didn't really sit down and think about what the arc should be. Like, and it's understandable, too, because what functionally happened is that the rebels are like, we'll kill and murder people to be free. And then we go and fight them, and then we get this one person captured, like, hey, so, like, what is this? Why are you killing and murdering people? And they're like, we want to be free! And they're like, okay, hang on. And we go call on Alexstrasza, who, I remind you, at this point, is probably personal friends with us as the PC. We're like, hey, they want to be free. And she's like, okay. And that's pretty much the end of the arc. Like, we talked about this more extensively during the run. The whole thing smacked of, oh, shoot, these guys are slaves, aren't they? Let's free them. Okay, they're free. Whew, okay. Mission accomplished. Because, like, logically speaking, there was no actual reason for that enslavement to exist. There was no actual reason for any of that to be a thing. But it was because we were stuck with the lore of the setting prior to now. So someone was finally like, hey, maybe we should bring this up in character. And then they did, and it was resolved instantly. Because, again, there was no real conflict, right? Anyways, sorry for ranting. It's just, it was such a thing. Alright. What's the best story arc? What's the best story arc in Dragonflight? Honestly, I think this is one of those no wrong answers kind of situations. Agreed, Mr. Red. Yeah, the Black Dragonflight, we just talked about that. Everything to do with Neltharion's legacy, and really fleshing out Neltharion and emphasizing just how horrible of a person he was, even before he gave into the Void. Never mind after. And then everything to do with Abyssian and Rathian, and of course, Sibelian. Zarlek in general? Well, I mean, that's the Black Dragonflight, so that's a good answer. Yeah, the Black Dragonflight has lost any sense of nostalgia, and that's a good thing. The good old days weren't. Simplest way I can lay that one down. The good old days weren't. But for mine, I'm going to go with the Blue Flight. The Blue Flight is one of those kind of cheating ones. Because the Blue Flight is actually multiple different arcs, kind of... There's a bunch of micro arcs, and all of them are part of the larger arc of restoring the Blue Dragonflight. Everything they did with Sindragosa 2, turning her into an actual character. More fleshing out of Malygos, everything to do with Caligos. You know, the little tidbits, the Senegos, who was awesome. Yeah, they didn't do much with Red. I noticed that. I'm not sure why. Because everyone else got a scene, got a section pretty much to themselves. The Black Flight, the Blue Flight, the Green Flight, and the Bronze Flight. And arguably the Incarnates. We even had a little side thing where we went off and helped out with the Netherwing Flight and the Thrungir over in Legion. Didn't have much for the Reds. Listen, Mr. Red. So Blue was my favorite arc. What's the worst cutscene? I wish I could show you the worst cutscene, but I don't actually know how to show it. I'm actually, I guess I could. I guess I could. Hang on. Let me try to pull this out. Any thoughts on worst cutscene? There's actually several valid answers here, because again, Dragonflight was still kind of rough. What, the Power Rangers, Uthor? It's what I call that scene. I'll go ahead and tell you. There were 3 I was debating between. Like, because all 3 of them are just kind of like, sorry, what? Just... One second. So, unfortunately, thanks to a bunch of really frustrating problems coinciding, that part of the VOD is just gone. It's lost. I keep all my stuff locally recorded, but we had a blip, a power blip in the middle of that. And at the time, I was recording my local footage in MP4 format, which, if you know, means that you have to, there's a thing you have to do at the end of that to terminate the footage. Otherwise, the file is ruined. It doesn't actually think. So I had a power blip, which meant I lost the local recording. I didn't find out about that, because I'm an idiot, until, like, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks later. And at that point in time, Twitch was deleting VODs about 2 weeks out. So the Twitch VOD was gone, and the local copy was gone. It is, unfortunately, just straight up lost. Sorry. That's... Yeah. Anyways... There it is. So the reason this one edges out the others for me is something we can talk about in a second. Hang on one second. Thank you, Ethereum. Of course I can't find it now. I'm actually having trouble finding the cutscene. That's funny. There it is. Found it. Took me a second. Yep, okay. So, so I said there were 3, right? And thank you, Ethereum. There were 3 that really bothered me. The first was Razageth defeats Rathian with a rock, which... I get what they're going for, but was honestly just really, really badly storyboarded. Like, the actual construction of the scene and the placement of the people and what happened, where, like I said, storyboarding was just actively bad. It makes sense because it was probably one of the first cutscenes they made, and that was firmly in the Offices on Fire era, but woof, it was really stupid. The second cutscene that really bothered me was the one Huthor mentioned, which is the end of Amir Drasil. It is very after-school special. I learned something today. Right, again, I call it the Power Rangers cutscene. And it's just, it reminds me of the end of Cataclysm cutscene. And probably they were very deliberately invoking that because a lot of Amir Drasil was kind of a, hey, Cataclysm, but better kind of an approach. And I was not a big fan of that. But the one that struck me as the actual worst also has to do with our good friend Razageth. Oh, hang on, gotta resize. I keep doing this. Sorry, this is my fault. This is my fault. Ah!
Razagath, enough! We need not fight another war. There is still time to see reason. Time is precisely what you stole from me. Thousands of years, rotting in that prison. I failed then to restore peace between us. Too many paid for that. Spare me your sanctimony! You forced the Titan's edict upon us all! You betrayed the world that gave us life! And when we dared resist, you cast us out!
Uh-huh.
Never again! Your false reign must end! You are bold, Whelpling. But you are fighting on the wrong side. She never told you the suffering they inflicted upon us. The insult of being forgotten. I want her to watch helplessly as everything she built comes crumbling down. Only then will she meet a fitting end.
Okay, so yeah, I hate that cutscene, everything about it. I could really sit here and dissect how many things I find wrong with this cutscene. I could, but I already did. So I'll skip over all of that. Let me just say this very simply, and I want to stress that this is not hyperbole. That this is not me trying to, like, talk it up or be exaggerative or anything like that. I almost quit the game again over this. And you're probably thinking, but you weren't playing with this as new. No, I wasn't, but I was still kind of paying attention to the story and to what was going on. I just kind of wanted to see what happened. So when this cutscene came out, I obviously saw it on YouTube. In fact, it might actually have literally been this exact VOD of it from Wowhead. And I watched this cutscene, I was just like, okay. And I was just, no. And this pushed me out of WoW, again, pretty hard. For reasons I'll go into in just a second. But like I said, I don't want to zoom in too much on the storyboarding or the fact that Alexstrasza was winning until she wasn't, or the fact that Wrathion apparently turned the tide despite not really bringing anything to the table, or the fact that they once again act like Alexstrasza has done this horrible thing and Razagath has a point when she clearly doesn't. It's just all kinds of whatever. So instead, we'll talk about the best cutscene. I can't show you the best cutscene, unfortunately, because it doesn't work that way. But I'll give you a hint. It happens right here. This is a gimme. This is a complete gimme. There is no argument here for me. Like, obviously there's some other cool moments here and there and cool sequences. I do very, very much like when Wrathion and Sibelian finally have their heart-to-heart and actually talk to each other for the first time, like frickin' people. But yeah, this cutscene, if for those of you who don't remember, see around Moog, there was an extended cutscene. I call it a cutscene, because it is in every way a cutscene. It's an interactable cutscene. It's a party. A lot of RPGs do the party thing, right? And a whole lot of these people are just here talking and chatting and being and doing and cool, awesome, fun, awesome. And basically everyone was here. Zinkiki was here, for God's sakes. Everybody was here. And they had some great stuff with basically everyone. Following through on plot threads and acknowledging what had happened. And, of course, the construction of the new world tree and the new home for the Night Elves. And just all kinds of amazing, fun, fantastic stuff. I loved... Where's the new music? I loved everything about what was happening here. Yeah, I liked it. I loved it. It was fantastic. It also genuinely made me give a crap about Tyrande Whisperwind. And if you don't know WoW lore, let me tell you, that is an impressive feat. Making me care about Tyrande in WoW. Yeah. Alright. Worst personal negative. What's the worst thing to you personally about Dragonfly? I know Bragwins. Get it off your chest, Bragwin. I know you need to. I know it's sitting there, ready to go. That's not actually mine. I'll talk about mine in a second. But what's everyone in chat? Everybody wants to jump in. What's the worst individual thing for you personally about Dragonflight? That would be very cool to Nerith. Who knows if they'll ever do it at this point, but it'd be cool. What about the new profession system tier? If you don't mind zooming in a little bit there.
Several whelps tending the gardens were caught up in a wild growth of lashers.
And we will never talk about them again. The end. Yeah, something I've noticed a few people mention. You notice dragon flying is completely different now. That's because dragon flying, when it first launched, the concept was a little rougher than it is now. You started off with way less stamina pips. And you didn't have, like, the zoom down thing. You didn't have all the talents. You didn't have this thing I've got going on right now, this glow beneath me that's giving me more stamina as I go. You didn't have this ability, you know. So getting around at the very beginning was a little rough. There's a reason why most people got the advice of, the moment you hit Dragonflight, go get all the talent points. There's no detriment to doing so, and you should do it immediately. That advice, it's worth noting, does not actually apply anymore, because they overhauled the stamina system and turned it into basically a cooldown system instead. Which just means, in terms of practical application, what it means is you are always at maximum stamina gain, which is good. So, all those little naggles have since been removed, but when Dragonflight was live, it was still irritating, and I will freely admit that. Too saccharine for its own good. I mean, we did have the after-school special, Mr. Red. But you're right, or at least you've got a valid point. Dragonflight was an extremely positive. It was an extremely positive expansion. This is all about the world moving forward. Even like the side, seemingly unrelated quests, like the Reclamation of Gilneas. That was a Dragonflight quest, as a reminder. And that was Gen Greymane very, very maturely acknowledging that he is too old and too scarred to let go. But acknowledging that and therefore letting go of the reins, if that makes any sense. And putting, I can't remember her name, in charge instead. And the Gilneans and the Forsaken finally starting to work together. This is also when Heritage Quests started being a thing. And Heritage Quests are baller. Like, I have nothing bad to say about Heritage Quests, you know? Hang on. Fact checking. Hang on. Hang on. Hey, Yada. 1 second, please. You are correct. 8.2 was when the Taran Heritage Quest came out. That's valid. I accept being wrong. So anyways, the good Heritage Quests were in Dragonflight. They were. Prove me wrong. Thank you, Yada, for the sub. If you want to put that towards up to 3 things, please let me know. So, you actually already know my major complaint, because, again, this is a very personal thing, right? I did actually give it negatives during the review, because I do think it's a bad thing. But the problem is, the MSQ for the launch story of Dragonflight was extremely Hollywood. To the point where I was just amazingly de-invested in it. I mentioned that cutscene we just saw. Well, part of the reason why that cutscene was so blah for me is because we had just finished with all this stupid bullcrap of trying to overemphasize how big the jailer's dick was. And the next thing we see is Razageth, well, I see, is Razageth bodying Alexstrasza. And she is now the big, super, amazingly powerful thing in the whole world. You remember, if I pointed this out during the run, if you remember, the whole end of the world angle just kind of got dropped at a certain point, and they just kind of pushed it under the rug. Even when we were still dealing with Fyrak, it was more about what was going to happen to the tree, and the druids, and the night elves, and it was a little bit more zoomed in than, this will destroy the entire world. Because I was just so sick of that. I was so sick of the end of the world garbage. I was so sick of constantly trying to up the stakes. I was so sick of trying to make a bigger threat and warfing and all of that nonsense. I wasn't in a place for it. I wasn't in a place to tolerate it. Even when I finally actually acquiesced. So you remember, I didn't even play the game at launch because I refused to because of that. I thought, oh, it's just more of the same. I don't want to deal with that nonsense. And I had to be convinced to come in during patch content to when I was finally able to, I finally popped in and started playing it for myself, and thank God, Dragonflight's awesome. But that's the worst thing personally for me about all of Dragonflight, was the big nonsense end of the world thing with the latest bad guys who are just Twilight's Hammer light. Thank God the Twilight's Hammer doesn't have a Twilight Blade. Could you imagine? Best personal thing. Best personal thing for you. Best unique thing about Dragonflight for you. I like Mr. Red's answer to that. This is another one of those no wrong answers kind of situations. Yeah, no, I talked about how much this system is just so much better than anything that came before it. Again, even not even just the talents themselves, the philosophy that went into the talents, the nature of how talents connected with each other, the fact that you can rebuild on the fly. Like, oh, I'm going to get rid of that talent. Boop. I can just do that. I want to get rid of these two. Well, hang on, I want to bring this up. You know what? I just want to redo my left tree. You know what? Hang on. I got a better idea. I want to redo my right tree. You know, I want to redo everything. You know what? I want to import someone else's build. You know what? I want to save my build. I want to share my build in chat. This is great interface design, top to bottom. And then you have the great talents on top of that. Ignore this in the middle. That's more within. Just this stuff. That's why I had such a hard time picking a favorite class. It's because they were all just kind of good. And yeah, they certainly opened up the overworld. What I find most interesting about the Huthor is most of the time in the past, hi Ross, every time they would add a big open zone, they wouldn't accommodate that. Let me explain that really quickly. A lot of the time, they did this with the Maw. They just did this with Shadowlands. They had a big, huge open zone, and then they forced you to travel around it. The same slow, boring methods you already had. I did, Yada. Thank you. I got it down for Xenosaga, DBZ Kakarot, and Jet Force Gemini. Thank you again. If you're going to have nice, big, open space, you need to give the player the option to bypass it. I know that sounds strange, but I mean it. Because if you have a nice, big, open space and the player has to engage with it every time, what you have created is a slog. You have designed a commute. Like, it's not hard to explain this. Think for a moment. Just really put into your head how awesome these zones are. Yeah, exactly, Carwanos. Now imagine you had to cross the Honorin Plains, which is a great zone. Big, open, rolling fields, fantastic music, great quests, great story. Imagine you had to cross it in old flight form, which is only like 3 or so steps down in terms of overall speed, right? But still, even that one step down would make this zone so much worse. Well, we could go further down than that. If this is another MMO or older MMOs, what they would have to do is this. I'm not going to do this because it's probably a 10-minute trip. But think about what it would be like playing in the Honorin Plains like this. See you around, Mr. Red. You're going to miss War Within? No! It's okay. I know you hate War Within. It's okay. I understand. I mention this too because I know they did this on purpose. One of the things they did was they sat down and they actually thought about transit. How dare you steal? Yeah, I just saw him yell over there. Where is he? There he is. There's Fire Act right over there. They sat down and they thought about traversal. Someone in chat pointed this out earlier, but they actually increased the speed of normal flight speed just to help accommodate, but then they also came up with dragon flying. And they had to add the physics engine, they had to change the render of how the engine renders doodads and distance stuff. This is when they added that fog system to make distant terrain look better too. Like you see it right there. That new fog, that new layer of fog is something that was new, which they also backported to old zones, by the way. So they did a lot to make the open world work. But I haven't told you my answer yet. Unfortunately, my answer is basically Mr. Red's answer. Damn you, Mr. Red. Damn you. For a period of time there, something weird was happening. No, dear. I was playing FF14 and Dragonflight at basically the same time. Kind of by coincidence. Just look at that for a second. Hang on, let's zoom in. Just get rid of everything. Look at that. Look at that fog. Look what that does for that visual. Look at that. It's not even just one thing of fog. There's actually 4 separate things of fog happening here. Different types of fog to make all of this look great. In addition to the usual detail thing. I can't think of the name of it right now. Not culling, the other thing. Not depth of field. The thing that changes the detailing the closer you get to it. I can't remember what that's called. I can actually see it happening if I pay attention. Level of depth. That's it. Level of depth. Thank you. Or LOD. This game is actually crazily well designed under the hood, which is funny when you think about it, considering what it's built off of. Warcraft 3, for those of you not aware. I'm getting off topic. Playing FF14, what I kept doing, and I actually want to apologize for this to any of my FF14 watchers, all like 2 of you in chat right now, because none of you care about WoW. I kept comparing FF14, I believe it was Dawn Trail we were going through, because it was part of the reviewer series, to WoW. But the mistake I kept making, and this is on me, is I kept assuming WoW was always like Dragonflight. In my mind, in my memory, and my vague... There's a reason I don't like to do vague memory stuff, right? Because it's vague. It's in the name. I much prefer to have receipts. in my vague memory, WoW from about Cataclysm and onwards had always been like Dragonflight. And let me tell you, no. And so I kept talking up WoW while reviewing FF14, partially because it was a good comparison point to discuss MMO design and blah, 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 but also because it was just, people kept telling me that FF14 was so much better than WoW in every way, and that kept grating on me because I was playing Dragonflight, which crushed FF14 like a bug. And it did, to be very clear. But here, you're probably thinking, hang on, you're supposed to be talking about your most unique but good thing. I'm getting to it. Give me a second. So when we started the review, when we finally reviewed WoW, and I went back and started going down receipts, analytical, get down to point-by-point stuff, WoW was reviewing pretty badly. Which makes sense. I always expected BC to review badly. But then we hit Wrath, and that was rough. Then we hit Kata, and that was much rougher than I remember. Then we hit Pandaria, which was not as good as I remembered. Warlords was actually fine. Legion was way worse than I remembered. BFA was actually better than I remembered. And Shadowlands was better than I remembered, which still put it as a massive net negative. And all of these expansions we went through were kind of bad. Like, I don't mean that in the general sense. What I mean is none of it was anywhere near as good as my vague memories were telling me they were. My vague memories were extraordinarily wrong. So when we finally hit Dragonflight, more than anything else, I was nervous. And then we reviewed Dragonflight. And Dragonflight still had plenty of negatives, and plenty of issues, and plenty of problems. But it is a completely different animal. It is a completely different beast from anything that had come before it. If I look at my own review page right now, I just want to tell you a bit of a story here in numbers. So if we look at the review scores here, BC got a negative 304. Wrath of the Lich King got 88. Cataclysm got 485. Pandaria got 644. Warlords got 197. Legion got 380. BFA got 620. And Shadowlands got negative 70. If you're paying attention to that list there, the highest scoring expansion is Pandaria at 644. Now that's a damned high score. But it's also not overly, really all that high when you consider things like, say, Endwalker, which was topping 720. So that's it. And then we hit Dragonflight, and Dragonflight scored 1,771.11. That is almost triple the score of Pandaria. And I came up with a new term during the review. I call it Modern WoW, to describe Dragonflight, War Within, and hopefully Midnight. Because this is the WoW I kind of always wanted it to be. This is the polish, this is the storytelling, this is the gameplay, this is actually thinking about things. This is good boss design, this is good quest design, this is good leveling design, this is good talent design, this is good overworld design, this is good visual design, this is good music design, this is good sound design, this is good song design, good voice acting, plenty of voice acting, great side characters. Modern WoW is such a different animal on every level that I have a difficulty summarizing it. And that's my personal best positive thing about Dragonflight, is that it is the beginning of modern WoW. That it took all of the pieces and the office, which was, I remind you, literally and metaphorically on fire. I don't know why I said literally, I shouldn't have said that. Metaphorically on fire. And turned it into this. And then War Within came out. And let me tell you, I was nervous. I was so nervous. Because I obviously enjoyed Dragonflight a great deal when it was live. This is before the review run, obviously. And I'm like, how's War Within? Because we were all talking about it. It was a non-stop discussion point. Even on the FF14 server, we were talking about it. Because WoW having a good expansion wasn't really... It isn't unexpected. WoW's expansion quality doing this is nothing new. So Dragonflight being good, especially after Shadowlands being bad, isn't really what you'd call a big newsworthy note. War Within was going to be our proof of concept, because it was either going to stick the landing, or it was going to be mid, Or it was going to actually be bad. That's cool looking. That'll look right there. I'm gonna go grab lunch. Then I'm gonna see how War Within actually did.